Chapter 2138, 2138 Might of the Zither Immortal. 2138 Might of the Zither Immortal. Prince Yuanzhua was smart. He knew very well that there was no way Meng Yao would bother to deal with Su Zimo because of him. Furthermore, doing that might cause a feud with the four immortal sections. However, if he linked Su Zimo with the two of them, even if it was only a possibility, it would be enough to attract Meng Yao's attention. Prince Yuanzhua wanted to make use of Meng Yao to deal with the four immortal sects and Su Zimo. In reality, as he had expected, Meng Yao had indeed placed her attention on Su Zimo at the mention of this. When Prince Yuanzhua saw that, he seized the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. I led more than 100 execution guards to suppress this person and bring him back to the great Qing Immortal Kingdom. However, this person was way too arrogant and openly declared war on the great Qing Immortal Kingdom in front of everyone during the Immortal Sect selection, killing all the execution guards. Right now, these people from the four immortal sects are trying their best to recruit him and did not stop even when Jingyu appeared. They must truly think that our great Qing Immortal Kingdom is weak to look down on and humiliate us as such. Prince Yuan's tone was agitated, and he looked sorrowful, as though he had suffered immense grievances. To begin with, Meng Yao exuded an aloof aura that prevented strangers from approaching. When she heard that, her cold expression and beautiful eyes were even filled with a chilling intent. Heaven Immortal White Sea was sweating profusely when he heard that. He stood out hurriedly and said, "Your Highness, you have to make things clear. I represented Flying Immortal Sect and withdrew a long time ago. On account of my senior sister here, there was no way I would have ever become enemies with you or the great Qing Immortal Kingdom." "Yes," Prince Yuanzhua said, "fellow Taoist White Sea withdrew indeed, but the other three of them were insistent. They were even willing to fight me to protect this sinner." Prince Yuanzhua continued to add fuel to the fire. Heaven Immortal Green Peak cursed internally, but he still forced a smile. "Fairy Meng Yao, please calm down. I'll withdraw on behalf of Imperial Wind Temple and no longer recruit this person." He had not expected Zither Immortal Meng Yao to suddenly appear here. Although they were both perfected immortals, Zither Immortal Meng Yao's reputation and combat strength were much greater than perfected Immortal Jingyu. Even some immortal kings had to treat the Zither Immortal with respect when they saw her. Now that the Zither Immortal was here, even if Su Zimo was someone like Yun Ting, Imperial Wind Temple would not dare to accept him, let alone the fact that he was a mere monster incarnate with immense potential. If the legacy disciples of Imperial Wind Temple knew that he had offended Zither Immortal Meng Yao because of a grade 6 Earth Immortal, they would probably skin him alive. Meng Yao shifted her gaze towards Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu and asked indifferently, "Why? You guys still want to protect this person?" Meng Yao's tone was calm and emotionless. However, it contained an unimaginable pressure. She was the Zither Immortal. She was not only a perfected immortal, she was backed by a deep network of major factions and many top experts. It was no exaggeration to say that even if an immortal king offended the Zither Immortal, he might be killed by other immortal kings. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Instantly, countless gazes landed on Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu. At that moment, both of them were under immense pressure. That pressure was not something a Heaven Immortal could endure. In other words, even if most of the perfected immortals of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and Heaven and Earth Academy were to arrive, they would not be able to withstand the same pressure as well. Time passed. Even a few breaths seemed like 100 years. "Since Fairy Meng Yao is here," Heaven Abyss finally spoke and said slowly, "On behalf of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect, I'll withdraw from the competition and no longer recruit this person." When he heard that, a look of disappointment flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Of course, there was no resentment in his heart. He could sense Heaven Abyss's helplessness. He was merely disappointed. He was disappointed in Heaven Abyss and Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Many cultivators were filled with emotions when they saw that. This was the might of the Zither Immortal. After descending, she did not say much or gave any threats, much less attack. Even so, 3 Heaven Immortals had to lower their heads to retreat to avoid her sharpness. If nothing went wrong, young Ruoxu would relent as well. Now that he was the only one left among the 4 heaven immortals, the pressure on him would increase 100-fold. His reputation and combat strength were far inferior to Heaven Abyss and the others. It was impossible for him to withstand it. Young Ruoxu stood on the spot and lowered his head slightly. There were no emotions on his bronze face as he remained silent. Zither Immortal, Fufu, how impressive. Suddenly, a woman's voice sounded in midair with a hint of mockery. The crowd was astonished. Someone dared to speak to the Zither Immortal in such a tone. Perfected Immortal Qing Yu's expression changed as he said hurriedly, "Princess, I tried to step in earlier on to suppress Su Zimo. This was the person who attacked in secret and saved him. I'm ashamed to say that I could not locate her. Please take charge, Princess." Meng Yao was not angered when she heard that voice. After pondering for a moment, she turned to look at a carriage in the crowd of coiling Dragon Mountain Range and asked with a frown, "It's you?" She was extremely surprised when she recognized the person. This person truly should not have appeared here. That's right. The voice of the plain-robed woman sounded from within the carriage. The cultivators around the carriage were scared out of their wits and avoided the carriage one after another, afraid that they would be implicated. This carriage was way too ordinary. It was so ordinary that it would not attract anyone's attention in the crowd. However, the carriage was covered by the curtains and outsiders could not see what was going on inside. Even their spirit consciousnesses could not scan inside. Only Prince Yunlei, who was not far away, frowned with a confused expression. Although the voice sounded familiar, it was impossible. His sister cultivated silently in the library all year round and rarely saw anyone. Even he would not be able to request an audience with her. Why would she suddenly appear here? "So, you're hiding here." Perfected Immortal Qing Yu's gaze intensified as he glared at the carriage and said coldly, "How dare you hide? Let me see who you are." With that said, Perfected Immortal Qing Yu advanced and was ready to attack. However, Meng Yao waved her sleeves and released a tremendous power, forcing Perfected Immortal Qing Yu back. Perfected Immortal Qing Yu was stunned for a moment and was about to ask. Meng Yao said indifferently, "You're not her match. Don't embarrass yourself." Perfected Immortal Qing Yu's face flushed red instantly. He took deep breaths repeatedly before calming down and smiling bitterly. "Indeed, I had behaved recklessly." However, the other cultivators were shocked and were even more curious about the woman in the carriage. "Why? You know this grade 6 Earth Immortal?" Meng Yao glared at the carriage and asked. "No." Within the carriage, the plain-robed woman replied. The girl at the side shook her head repeatedly with an anxious expression, reminding the plain-robed woman not to be reckless. Meng Yao smiled and asked again, "You want to interfere even if you don't know him?" "I just can't stand the way the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom bullies others, so I want to interfere." The plain-robed woman's tone was indifferent, and she did not give in at all. "Fufu, interesting." Meng Yao smiled like a snow lotus blossoming with a hint of coldness in her beauty. She said slowly, "This person killed more than 100 execution guards of the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom. His crimes are unforgivable, and he deserves to die. You don't know him, yet you want to stand up for him? You want to offend the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect at the same time because of someone unrelated." Meng Yao's tone intensified, and even her aura turned murderous. This was a sign that she was prepared to fight at any moment. Chapter 2139, 2139 Butterfly, 2139 Butterfly. Within the carriage, the girl was so anxious that she was about to cry. "Princess, don't be rash." The girl sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. "Su Zimo has nothing to do with us. There's no need for us to offend the Zither Immortal just because of him. Your identity is special, and every single move you make represents the Zixin Immortal Kingdom. If you fall out with the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect because of this person, it's truly unwise. I'm afraid King Zixin will even blame you." The plain-robed woman was silent. Part of the reason why she paid attention to Su Zimo was because before Yun Ting entered Seclusion, he had instructed her to pay attention to news of this person so that they could fight again in the future. On the other hand, it was also because she discovered that Su Zimo might be hiding a secret and was curious. However, in reality, the girl beside her was not wrong. Indeed, she had nothing to do with Su Zimo. In fact, they had never even met or spoken, let alone had any relationship. The reason why she attacked earlier on was out of righteousness. Ever since she was young, she could not stand the injustice of the world and wanted to fight against it. As such, she offended many factions and caused many troubles. Later on, her father locked her in the library to punish her. In her father's words, he wanted to grind down that scholarly justice of hers. To think that she would undergo a baptism, consolidation, and transformation in the library. Although she rarely appeared, her reputation in Divine Firmament mainland grew considerably. Later on, although her father had already released her, she was also unwilling to leave the library so easily. The plain-robed woman was well aware of the filth and corruption of the outside world that she could not change single-handedly. Since she could not change it and was unwilling to go along with the flow, she might as reside in the library. Her mind was more at peace without seeing everything that was out there. With books as companions, she read through history and experienced the majesty of many ancient eras through words. She comprehended the endless secrets contained in the words. That was the meaning of life that she pursued. The plain-robed woman hesitated. As the girl had said, she did not know Su Zimo at all. Was she going to offend Meng Yao and fight over such a person? She was a princess of the Zixin Immortal Kingdom, and her every move would remind one of the Zixin Immortal Kingdom. She had too many reservations. The plain-robed woman was silent, and outsiders naturally did not know of her inner conflict. In the eyes of the outsiders, Meng Yao's torrential aura and brazen questioning had forced back the woman in the carriage. Silence was concession. If even the perfected immortal expert in the carriage chose to retreat, Su Zimo's fate was already decided. When Meng Yao saw that there was no longer any sound coming from the carriage, she seemed to be wary and did not push further. She turned to Prince Yuanzhua and said, "Take Su Zimo away and return to the great Jin Immortal Kingdom." Understood. Prince Yuanzhua was delighted and moved forward, prepared to capture Su Zimo. Right then, a tall figure stood in front of Su Zimo. He was tall and straight with a sharp face. His bronze skin revealed a hint of resoluteness as he said with a firm gaze, "This is inappropriate." It was Yang Ruoxu of Heaven and Earth Academy. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Many cultivators looked at Yang Ruoxu in disbelief. Now that Zither Immortal Meng Yao had appeared and the 3 Heaven Immortals had retreated in cowardice, even the perfected Immortal in the carriage had taken a step back. Who would dare to stand out? On the surface, Yang Ruoxu was stopping Prince Yuanzhua. However, in reality, he was stopping Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Prince Yuanzhua shrugged his shoulders slightly and did not say anything. That was because he knew that he did not even have to step in for this matter. Meng Yao frowned slightly and looked at Yang Ruoxu with cold eyes, asking indifferently, "Who are you?" Yang Ruoxu cupped his fists and said in a deep voice, "I'm Yang Ruoxu, from Heaven and Earth ACA. Never heard before." Before Yang Ruoxu could finish, he was interrupted coldly by Fairy Meng Yao. Meng Yao said, "I've heard of many people in Heaven and Earth Academy, including the #1 immortal of the Academy, but I've never heard of any Yang Ruoxu. Sister Meng Yao, he ascended from the lower worlds." Prince Yuan's was said at the side. "Oh, no wonder." Meng Yao smirked with a hint of mockery. "So, he's just a lowlife. That explains why he doesn't know how to behave." The muscles on Yang Ruoxu's face trembled slightly. Although his emotions were surging, he still had a calm expression. "I'm just a junior of the Academy and indeed don't have much of a reputation. It's normal for you to not have heard of me, Fairy Meng Yao." Meng Yao shook her head gently. "What's up with Heaven and Earth Academy? They actually sent a lowlife who doesn't know how to behave to host the Immortal Sect selection. They're truly getting worse. Since it's an arrangement of the Academy, I don't dare to make any rash decisions on my own accord. I only know that I have to fulfill my duty for this trip, Yang Ruoxu said expressionlessly. Oh, and your duty is? Meng Yao asked. Yang Ruoxu said, to select the most suitable disciples for our sect. Pausing for a moment, he continued, I can't cower because of any external obstacle. Humph. Meng Yao harumphed coldly. Yang Ruoxu was interrupted once more before he could finish. This time round, Meng Yao merely harumphed. However, it was as though a gigantic hammer had landed on his chest and struck his heart heavily. Yang Ruoxu's face turned purple, and he felt his chest turn stuffy. It was extremely uncomfortable, and his heart felt like it was about to explode. If Zither Immortal Meng Yao wanted to kill him, she wouldn't even have to lift a finger. This is just a small lesson for you. Meng Yao said coldly, if you push your luck and don't know what's good for you, I can kill you right now. The many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy were trembling in fear. That was a blatant threat. Nobody dared to doubt the Zither Immortal's methods. Meng Yao said, let me tell you, even if Sword Immortal Yu Hua of Heaven and Earth Academy comes here today, he has to give me face. Who do you think you are? Yang Ruoxu laughed bitterly. Fairy Meng Yao, please step in and get the Academy to send senior brother Yu Hua over to replace me. I'll naturally have nothing to say about that. Mmm? Meng Yao's expression turned cold and killing intent surged in her eyes. The repeated provocation of this Heaven Immortal had triggered her killing intent. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu was wary of Heaven and Earth Academy and did not dare to attack Yang Ruoxu and the others. However, she did not have many reservations. She was the Zither Immortal. Even if she killed this unknown Heaven Immortal, she believed that Heaven and Earth Academy would not offend her. Senior Brother Yang, please come back. A cultivator of the Academy could not help but say. Lu Wenbin was anxious as well. Senior Brother Yang, he hasn't joined the sect yet. Why would you risk your life to offend exalted Immortal Meng Yao for an outsider? What nonsense are you guys talking about? Yang Ruoxu suddenly turned around and shouted, I joined the Academy and cultivated the Righteousness Sutra. I have to have a clear conscience for everything I do. This person has already won the Immortal Sect selection and is qualified to join the 4 Immortal sections. How can he be considered as an outsider? Although the Zither Immortal is powerful, what rights does she have to take him away? If I retreat today, I won't be able to cultivate any righteousness. Yang Ruoxu said those words indignantly in an impassioned manner. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he was moved. All right, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish, Meng Yao said coldly with an indifferent expression. The moment she said that, the sound of a zither sounded in midair. The sound of the zither possessed a strange demonic power, and ripples appeared in the void, spreading towards Yang Ruoxu. Although the ripples looked weak, Yang Ruoxu could not defend against them at all. Right then, a snow-white butterfly suddenly flew out of nowhere and entered the battlefield. Chapter 2140, 2140 Fairy Mo Qing. 2140 Fairy Mo Qing. The butterfly was inconspicuous and was only the size of a palm. It barged into the battlefield and flapped its wings gently above the ripples created by the sound of the zither. Crack, crack, crack. Instantly, a layer of frost covered the ripples in midair, and they froze under countless gazes. The cultivators were shocked. This was the attack of Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Even without using her full strength, it was not something that any ordinary person could defend against. If that snow-white butterfly could neutralize the attack of Zither Immortal Meng Yao, its cultivation realm must be at the perfected immortal realm as well. Where did the butterfly come from, and what was its background? When perfected Immortal Jing Yu saw the snow-white butterfly, he frowned and his gaze froze as he whispered, It seems to be the ice butterfly that escaped from Green Cloud County. Back when the ice butterfly was just born and awakened, its combat strength was far from its peak, and it was severely injured by him. From the looks of it, the combat strength of the ice butterfly should have recovered to its peak. If they were to fight again, he might not be able to gain any advantage. The moment perfected Immortal Jingyu said that, he felt a chill run down his spine. The ice butterfly was staring at him not far away with obvious hostility. It's indeed that ice butterfly. Perfected Immortal Jingyu's heart skipped a beat. At the same time, he recalled something. At that time, the severely injured ice butterfly was saved by one of the four great fairies, the painting Immortal. Did the sudden appearance of the ice butterfly mean that? At that thought, Perfected Immortal Jingyu looked at Zither Immortal Meng Yao hurriedly and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Princess Meng Yao, watch out. There's a chance. He did not finish. He realized that everyone was looking in the same direction. He looked over instinctively as well. In the distant horizon, a woman was heading over. The woman had a graceful figure and light steps. She wore a tube dress and a silk veil with a slender waist. Her black hair was tied into a bun, and her eyes were clear as water. Her skin was smooth, and she had an orchid-like aura. Many cultivators seemed to see a drop of ink fall into the water and gradually disperse, forming an elegant and ancient ink painting. This woman was like a fairy that had walked out of a painting and was breathtakingly beautiful. The moment they saw the woman, many cultivators were stunned. Even the peerless and beautiful Zither Immortal could not conceal this woman's brilliance. Their beauty was completely different. This woman's beauty was even more reserved and ancient. Even Su Zimo, who had seen many beauties, was slightly dazed when he caught sight of this woman and could not help but exclaim internally. Before the cultivators could react, the woman had already arrived and stood opposite Zither Immortal Meng Yao. The ice butterfly flew around Su Zimo before returning to the woman's side and landing on her shoulder. Naturally, no one noticed that. Everyone's gazes were attracted by the woman, who would notice the ice butterfly's actions. When Yang Ruoxu saw the woman, he heaved a sigh of relief. Enduring the tightness in his chest, he bowed and said in a deep voice, "Greetings, Senior Sister Imo Qing." Painting Immortal Imo Qing. Two of the four great fairies had arrived. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Be it the cultivators who were here to take part in the Immortal Sect selection or watch the battle, none of them expected that they would have the chance to catch a glimpse of the glory of the two fairies. So, it's younger sister Imo Qing. It's been a long time. How have you been, sister? Meng Yao chuckled. Fairy Imo Qing did not reply and merely glanced sideways at Yang Ruoxu beside her. She waved her sleeves gently and bumped into Yang Ruoxu's chest. Yang Ruoxu shuddered and could not help but spit out a huge mouthful of blood. The blood was pitch black and looked a little terrifying. Earlier on, Yang Ruoxu was injured by Meng Yao's sound domain. His chest felt stuffy, and his heart felt like it was about to explode. It was extremely uncomfortable, and he endured it the entire time. Now that he spat out that mouthful of blood, he felt his blood cheek clear, and the discomfort from earlier on lessened significantly. Thank you, senior sister. Yang Ruoxu expressed his thanks once more. Meng Yao noticed this and pondered. Fairy Imo Qing nodded before looking at Meng Yao opposite her and asking directly, "Why did you hurt a disciple of my academy?" "Him?" Meng Yao glanced at Yang Ruoxu and smiled. "Sister, I was just helping you teach a lesson to a lowlife who doesn't know how to behave himself. What happened?" Fairy Imo Qing looked at Yang Ruoxu and asked softly. Yang Ruoxu hurriedly recounted the many changes that happened during the Immortal Sect selection, from Su Zimo entering the valley to Meng Yao attacking him earlier on. Fairy Imo Qing's beautiful eyes shifted to Su Zimo and lingered for a moment before looking away. The disciples of our academy will naturally be disciplined by our academy. There's no place for outsiders to interfere. After Fairy Imo Qing heard that, she said to Meng Yao, "In addition, Yang Ruoxu did not do anything wrong. Your younger brother was the one who broke the rules, right?" Many cultivators were secretly speechless. Who would have thought that today's matter would develop into such a situation? The Immortal Sect selection that was only held once every 100 years had now attracted two fairies, and they were even in a standoff. The atmosphere was tense. "Fu-fu." Meng Yao smiled. "Why? Sister Imo Qing, are you angry with me because of a lowlife?" Yang Ruoxu is not a lowlife. He's a disciple of our academy. Fairy Qing glared at Meng Yao and said word by word. The smugness in Meng Yao's eyes intensified as she shook her head and sighed. To think that the painting Immortal of Divine Firmament Mainland, my dear sister Qing, would fall into the sea of love one day. What did you say? Fairy Qing frowned. Isn't it obvious enough? Meng Yao smiled. Notwithstanding the fact that Yang Ruoxu is just a lowlife, his cultivation realm is only at the Heaven Immortal realm. However, you're willing to get angry at me for his sake and confront me, Sister Qing. Our many years of relationship can't compare to your lover. The moment she said that, everyone was in an uproar. One of the four great fairies, the painting Immortal, already had someone she fancied. This was explosive news that would even cause discussions in the entire Nine Firmament Immortal domain. Fairy Qing's face turned pale instantly as she clenched her fists instinctively. She glared at Meng Yao with her beautiful eyes. It was clear that she was extremely angry. Su Zimo cursed internally. This Zither Immortal was way too vicious. Regardless of whether or not Fairy Qing had such a relationship with Yang Ruoxu, even if there was, it was the most secretive matter between the two of them. Now that Meng Yao suddenly exposed it, the consequences for Yang Ruoxu and Fairy Qing would be extremely serious. Needless to say, Yang Ruoxu would have to deal with hostility and pressure. Fairy Qing would also become the topic of gossip for countless cultivators. At that time, countless vicious words and filthy rumors would be splashed on Fairy Qing. Furthermore, Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines. When he saw Yang Ruoxu and Fairy Qing's reactions, it did not seem like there was such a relationship. Meng Yao was setting up a vicious plot. She wanted to destroy the painting Immortal with a few words. Chapter 2141, 2141 The Terror of Words. 2141 The Terror of Words. Within the carriage, the plain-robed woman frowned and suddenly said, Meng Yao has such a vicious mind. To think that she would want to destroy Qing's reputation and Dao heart. As one of the four great fairies, Qing is ranked alongside you. She shouldn't be defeated so easily, right? The girl could not believe it. The plain-robed woman said, among the four of us, Fairy Qing is the quietest and doesn't like to fight. She's immersed in the Dao of painting and is relatively simple-minded. Meng Yao's words are indeed vicious and will hurt her immensely. The girl was still skeptical as she shook her head. How can a few mere words hold such power? You're too young and haven't left the palace much. You don't know the dangers of the outside world. The plain-robed woman said, although Meng Yao only said a few words, you have to understand that there are millions of cultivators and mouths here. Before long, this matter will spread through the entire Divine Firmament mainland and even the Nine Firmament. At that time, countless mouths will be talking about this matter. A crowd's mouth can melt metal and destroy bones. At that time, countless rumors will spread in Divine Firmament mainland. The power of human words is much more terrifying than you can imagine. The girl frowned. But Meng Yao's words are baseless. Would anyone believe her? Isn't it normal for fellow sect mates to help one another? The plain-robed woman sighed gently. Rumors are always easier to spread than the truth. The girl was even more puzzled. Which do you think will bring about more attention? The fact that the painting Immortal stood in to help a fellow sect mate, or her having someone she fancies? The plain-robed woman asked instead. Naturally, the latter, the girl replied. The plain-robed woman nodded and said, most of the time, people only believe in what they want to believe and don't care about the truth. Rumors stop at wise men. However, there aren't many wise men in this world after all. Pausing for a moment, she sighed gently. Meng Yao's insight into the human heart is way too terrifying. She's trying to make use of everyone's mouths to destroy Fairy Qing's reputation. In midair. Bullshit. Fairy Qing was furious, but she did not know how to explain things right away. She did not want to explain either. Meng Yao's words were way too ridiculous. How could anyone believe her? But soon, Fairy Qing realized that Meng Yao's words were like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples and caused a huge reaction in the crowd. Many cultivators were already looking at her with strange gazes. Mingyao, aren't you way too vicious to want to destroy senior sister Imoqing's reputation? Although Yang Ruoxu was only a heaven immortal, he could not help but shout at Mingyao. Fu! Mingyao was not angered and said with a smile, Why? The two of you can do it, but you won't allow others to speak about it? I know Sister Imoqing's character the best. She stands aloof from worldly affairs and spends her days drawing flowers, birds, fish, and insects. Why would she suddenly appear here? The only explanation is that someone met with danger here. Furthermore, this must be someone who could have her sacrifice everything and come over. The moment Sister Imoqing arrived, she began to heal you. It's clear how much she cares about you. Nonsense. Imoqing's body trembled slightly. She was obsessed with painting and did not like fuss. Therefore, she rarely interacted with others. The reason why her reputation grew was because every now and then, she would create paintings that experts of the upper world would fight for. She had no experience in dealing with the situation before her and did not know how to defend herself. I thought that the painting Immortal was some pure and innocent fairy. So, she has human needs as well. It's no wonder why Yang Ruoxu is here to host the Immortal Sect selection despite his unknown background. In my opinion, it might be because of the painting Immortal. She can't be considered as the painting Immortal anymore, right? Now that she's Dao companions with someone else, she would be removed from the four great fairies. Right? Do you guys think that the painting Immortal and Yang Ruoxu had hee-hee? The crowd was noisy, and the content of their discussions was getting more unbearable. Although some cultivators felt that it was not the truth because the painting Immortal did not admit to anything during this period of time, it was useless. They were drowned by the other voices before long. This was the state of the rumor in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range alone. Who knew what would happen when it spread further? Mingyao smiled calmly and was smug internally. The impact of this matter would last for a long time. Even if Fairy Imoqing could stabilize her Dao heart, her reputation would be completely destroyed and she might not even have a chance to break through in the future. That was not important. Most importantly, for Mingyao, from this day forth, one of the four great fairies was gone. That meant one less opponent for her. If she had the chance, she would even want to destroy the other two fairies as well. It would be best if there was only a single fairy in Divine Firmament mainland that countless cultivators admired, the Zither Immortal. Ha 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 ha. Right then, a burst of laughter sounded from midair. It was extremely loud and penetrated the clouds, even drowning out the discussions of many cultivators. Everyone looked over instinctively. Su Zimo was holding his belly and laughing nonstop, as though he had discovered the funniest thing in the world. If not for that laughter, almost everyone would have forgotten about him. Everyone, do you know why Prince Yuan Zhua is chasing after me? Su Zimo retracted his smile and asked mysteriously. The crowd fell silent, once more as many cultivators waited for Su Zimo to continue. Su Zimo said, That's because I discovered the greatest secret of Prince Yuan Zhua, or rather, the royal family of the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom. What nonsense are you talking about? Prince Yuanzhua barked coldly. Su Zimo sneered internally and continued, Prince Yuanzhua and Zither Immortal Meng Yao have already secretly become Dao companions and have had an illicit affair since a long time ago. The place fell into an uproar. This news was even more shocking. Even if the prince and princess were of different mothers, this was the greatest scandal of the Great Qing royal family. To hell with you. Prince Yuanzhua was so angry that his face was green as he cursed. The smile on Meng Yao's face froze as well. Su Zimo said, If that's not the case, why would Prince Yuanzhua travel thousands of kilometers and even lead more than 100 execution guards to kill me? Given Prince Yuanzhua's current status, how can he activate perfected immortals? And now, not only has perfected immortal Jingyu appeared, even Fairy Meng Yao is here. It's obvious why. Su Zimo sneered. Why? You want to kill me because you're more powerful when you join forces as both siblings and husband and wife? Within the carriage, the plain-robed woman could not help but burst into laughter. Uncontrollably, she shook her head. This Su Zimo sure has a sharp tongue. Princess, could he be telling the truth? The girl was stunned by Su Zimo and asked instinctively, Dear child, how is that possible? The plain-robed woman shook her head gently and said helplessly. Pausing for a moment, she said, however, after this fiasco created by him, the impact on Fairy Qing has diminished significantly. Chapter 2142, 2142 Picturesque Reality. 2142 Picturesque Reality. Many cultivators felt that Su Zimo's words were truly ridiculous. But soon, they realized that it was the same for Zither Immortal Meng Yao's remarks towards Fairy Qing. At the end of the day, neither party had any evidence and merely accused with empty words. Aunt, how dare you try and ruin my reputation? Die. Enraged, Meng Yao attacked and released a supreme divine power. She extended her slender finger and swiped in Su Zimo's direction through the void. A black line appeared in front of Su Zimo, emitting the aura of death as though it wanted to tear him into pieces. Supreme divine power, Death Slice. This was a supreme divine power that could only be comprehended after cultivating the great ripping technique to its limits and was extremely violent. Meng Yao's jade finger streaked through the void. At the same time that she released the supreme divine power, a faint sound echoed from the void, as though something was sliced. That sound possessed a strange power. Even the many cultivators far away from the battlefield felt uncomfortable when they heard that voice, as though every single inch of their flesh, bones, and organs were being torn apart. That supreme divine power was infused with the sound domain killing technique that Meng Yao was well versed in. Even against a grade 6 Earth Immortal, Meng Yao did not hold back at all. Her killing intent was cold, and she wanted to kill Su Zimo with a single strike. She had long forgotten about wanting to hunt down Gu Tongyu and Cho Siluo. Su Zimo's words had enraged her completely. As the Zither Immortal, in Divine Firmament Mainland, she was respected by countless cultivators as a fairy and revered like a god. Like a moon surrounded by stars, she had never suffered such slander and humiliation. Furthermore, the person who spoke was only a grade 6 Earth Immortal. Swoosh! A figure blocked in front of Su Zimo and waved her sleeves, releasing a supreme divine power. Instantly, majestic mountains and rivers appeared before everyone's eyes. The clouds were billowing, and it was beautiful like a painting. Picturesque reality. Within the carriage, the plain-robed woman murmured. What? The girl asked instinctively. The plain-robed woman said, This is a supreme divine power comprehended by Fairy Qing when she was obsessed in the Tao of painting in the past. She's the only one who can release this supreme divine power. The painting blocked the black thread of death conjured by Meng Yao. The two supreme divine powers collided with a shuddering sound. Right in front of everyone, even such a beautiful painting seemed like it could not withstand the killing power of Death Slice. Cracks appeared on the painting in a shocking manner. Qing. Before long, there were too many cracks on the painting and it shattered. The black thread of death gradually dissipated as well. Fairy Qing retreated a few steps with a grim expression. In the clash of divine powers, Zither Immortal Meng Yao had the upper hand. Humph. Meng Yao's expression was cold as she mocked. Qing, I can understand if you're angry with me because of your Tao companion, Yang Ruoxu. However, that aunt is only a grade 6 Earth Immortal and has never joined Heaven and Earth Academy. Why are you still so protective of him? I don't want to argue with you. My conscience is clear. Fairy Qing said. Fu-fu. Meng Yao smiled and slapped her storage bag, summoning an ancient zither. Qing, given your capabilities, how many of my zither sounds can you defend against? Meng Yao held the zither with one hand, and her other hand had its fingers on the strings, ready to pluck at any moment. The cultivators were shocked. A fight between the two fairies and the possibility of a huge battle breaking out was definitely going to cause a huge stir in Divine Firmament Mainland. Within the carriage, the girl could not stand Meng Yao's overbearingness and was naturally on Fairy Qing's side. She said with a worried expression, I heard that the painting Immortal is the weakest among the 4 great fairies. If the Zither Immortal were to attack with her full strength, she might not be able to defend against it. The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. Not necessarily. Right then, on the battlefield, Fairy Qing touched her glabella gently with her jade-like finger and took out an ancient book from her consciousness. She flipped it open rapidly and revealed a page. On the page, there was a divine dragon with towering horns, scales all over its body, and sharp claws. It was lifelike and emitted endless killing intent. Fairy Qing tore the page off and held it in her palm, glaring at Zither Immortal Meng Yao coldly. Meng Yao frowned and glared at the page of drawing and the ancient book in Fairy Qing's hands with a hint of fear in her eyes. "Princess, what's that in the hands of the painting Immortal?" The girl could not help but ask. The plain-robed woman said, "That's her painting book, and she won't use it casually. The painting Immortal is extremely talented in the Tao of painting. She can depict everything she has seen, be it flowers, trees, birds, beasts, or even divine dragons and other races." That doesn't seem like much, right? The girl was puzzled. There are many painters in the upper world who can do that. The plain-robed woman shook her head and explained, "Not only can she draw their forms, Fairy Qing can infuse the divine charm and dermic Tao of all living beings into them. It can take thousands or even 10,000 years to complete that painting of the divine dragon. It takes so long just to draw a painting." The girl stuck out her tongue in shock. The plain-robed woman said, "That's right. Every single painting of hers is infused with the divine charm and dermic Tao of the living being. After painting, she will summon the painting, and the living being in it will descend once more and appear in the world. Its combat strength will be almost the same as what she has seen." "Ah," the girl exclaimed. "That was way too amazing." Notwithstanding the fact that the living beings in the painting could descend once more through the painting Immortal's hands, they could even release powerful combat strength. The plain-robed woman said, "Of course, there's a huge restriction to such methods. For example, the stronger the living being, the longer it takes for the painting to be completed and the greater the effort required. Furthermore, once this painting is torn from the painting book, it doesn't matter if the living being in the painting eventually descends. The painting paper will be rendered invalid." The girl understood. In other words, each of Fairy Qing's paintings could only be released once. The plain-robed woman said, "Therefore, if the painting Immortal is angered in a life and death battle and releases all the living beings in her painting book, even the 3 of us with our combined strength will have to avoid her, let alone Zither Immortal Meng Yao alone." Fairy Qing tore off this painting paper to express her determination to Meng Yao. If Meng Yao really wants to attack, Fairy Qing might fight against her at all costs. In reality, it was as the plain-robed woman had expected. After Fairy Qing tore off the drawing paper from the book, Meng Yao had already thought of retreating. More importantly, after she exerted pressure on Heavenly Abyss earlier on, the latter had already sent a message to his sect. If the Chess Immortal knew about this, she would definitely rush over as well. At that time, she would be in a dilemma and things might get out of hand. Chapter 2143, 2143 Settled Dust. 2143 Settled Dust. "Princess Meng Yao, let me help you." Perfected Immortal Jing Yu stood out. However, the moment he moved, he felt a chill envelop him. The ice butterfly circled around Fairy Qing and glared at him with strong hostility, emitting a cold aura. He had some grudges with this ice butterfly in the past. Right now, the ice butterfly had already targeted him. If a huge battle were to break out, it would already be extremely fortunate if he could break free from the ice butterfly, let alone help the Zither Immortal. Clang! Suddenly, Meng Yao smiled and plucked the strings gently with her fingertips. However, there was no killing intent. Instead, it was pleasant to the ears like the sound of flowing water. The tension on the battlefield dissipated significantly. "Since you're so insistent, Sister Qing, I won't fight you." Meng Yao smiled gently. "We've known each other for many years. There's no need for us to fight over such a small matter and become a joke. However, although you can protect the two of them for now, you can't protect them forever. With that said, Meng Yao put away her zither and turned to leave. Since it was useless to stay here, there was no need to waste time. There was still a long way to go. The grudge today had already been formed, and there would definitely be a chance to kill Yang Ruoxu and Su Zimo in the future. Prince Yuan Zhua was indignant. When Meng Yao appeared, her might was unparalleled and everyone avoided her. They almost managed to capture Su Zimo alive. Unexpectedly, the situation stabilized once more after the arrival of the painting Immortal. Now, even Meng Yao was about to leave. Meng Yao's departure meant that no one could stop Su Zimo from joining Heaven and Earth Academy. At that time, with the backing of Heaven and Earth Academy, it would be 100 or 1,000 times more difficult for him to attack Su Zimo. Sister Meng Yao, are you leaving just like that? Prince Yuanzhua could not help but call out. Su Zimo is extremely detestable. He actually slandered us and said that the two of us had... Shut up. Meng Yao's expression darkened as she hollered. Waving her sleeves in reverse, she struck Prince Yuanzhua on the chest. Bang! The terrifying power of a perfected immortal's attack caused Prince Yuanzhua's body to explode instantly, turning into a blood mist. Many cultivators were dumbfounded when they saw that. Nobody expected Zither Immortal Meng Yao to be so ruthless to her younger brother. That tremendous power that destroyed Prince Yuanzhua's body was even enough to kill his essence spirit. At the side, perfected Immortal Jing Yu's expression changed starkly as he hurried to save Prince Yuanzhua's essence spirit. The loss of the physical body was not fatal for Heaven Immortals. As long as there was a drop of blood, his body could be reconstructed. However, the destruction of an essence spirit was equivalent to death. Princess, please calm down. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu looked at Meng Yao, who had a cold expression, and said hurriedly, His Highness Yuanzhua was unrestrained in his words and indeed deserves punishment. However, no matter what, he's still the son of King Jin. Please show mercy, Princess. Although Prince Yuanzhua's essence spirit was saved by perfected Immortal Jingyu, he was completely stunned at that moment. The reason why he said that earlier on was because he wanted to agitate Meng Yao further so that she could continue attacking, even if it meant fighting the painting Immortal. However, he could not understand why Meng Yao nearly killed him because of that sentence. Su Zimo was the one who said that. Even if she wanted to kill, Meng Yao should have dealt with Su Zimo. Why would she look for him? Although Prince Yuanzhua was at a loss, as a bystander, Su Zimo understood everything clearly. Meng Yao had two motives for doing this. Firstly, it was to vent her anger. She did not manage to achieve her goal when she arrived this time round. Instead, she was slandered by Su Zimo. Naturally, she was pissed and had nowhere to vent the anger in her heart. Secondly, she wanted to prove her innocence. Since Su Zimo said that she was involved with Prince Yuanzhua, she would kill him and use the blood of her younger brother to prove her innocence. Through his two interactions with the Zither Immortal, Su Zimo had a rough judgment of Meng Yao. Although this fairy looked beautiful on the surface, she was truly vicious on the inside. She did not care about the lives of others, even her younger brother. She could resort to any means to achieve her goals. How ruthless! Prince Yuanzhua was almost beaten to death. I reckon that the two of them are definitely not Dao companions. Otherwise, how could she be so ruthless to her Dao companion? The crowd discussed. When Meng Yao saw that she had achieved her goal, she could not be bothered to attack anymore. She turned to look at Fairy Imo Qing, Yang Ruoxu, and Su Zimo before turning to leave. Fairy Imo Qing's expression softened, and she heaved a sigh of relief. She truly did not want to fight or kill anyone. She liked solitude and was aloof from worldly affairs to begin with. There was another reason why she was here. Within the carriage, the girl patted her chest gently. That fierce woman is finally gone. To think that she's the Zither Immortal. She's more like a female yaksha. What rights does she have to be ranked alongside you, Princess? Tui. Feeling indignant, the girl spat fiercely. The plain-robed woman smiled. Her Zither skills are indeed decent. She was implying that apart from her Zither skills, there was nothing worth mentioning about the Zither Immortal. Right? Suddenly, the girl thought of something and asked again, Princess, the painting Immortal is so powerful. If she sees a person, can she also draw the person and infuse his dermic Tao and divine charm into it? She'll be quite scary if that's the case. If she sees you, won't she be able to draw a clone of you whose strength is comparable to yours, Princess? No. The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. I heard that Fairy Qing draws flowers, trees, birds, beasts, mountains, rivers, and all living beings. However, she never drew human figures. Huh, why? The girl's eyes widened in confusion. I don't know either. After pondering for a moment, the plain-robed woman said, perhaps there's no one whom she deems befitting of art. Or perhaps the human heart is way too complicated and difficult to portray. You can't judge a book by its cover. The girl murmured softly and fell into deep thought. In midair, Prince Yuanzhua had already used blood to reconstruct his body. Even so, Meng Yao's attack earlier on had destroyed more than half of his bloodline, and he had lost a lot of blood qi. He would have to recuperate for a long time in the future before he could recover. Prince Yuanzhua glared at Su Zimo fiercely, wanting nothing more than to devour him alive. He was way too aggrieved. First, he received a mysterious letter. Thereafter, he made sufficient preparations to ensure that nothing went wrong and arrived here with more than 100 execution guards. However, he did not expect them to be completely annihilated. Even he was almost beaten to death by his sister personally. He had already become a joke. It was all because of Su Zimo. Your Highness, let's head back. When perfected Immortal Qing you saw that Prince Yuanzhua was still filled with killing intent, he could not help but send a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Now that the painting Immortal is presiding over the situation and Princess Meng Yao has already left, there's no way we can take Su Zimo away with just us. There's still a long way to go. There will definitely be a chance to deal with this lad in the future. Prince Yuanzhua also knew that perfected Immortal Qing was not wrong. He could only swallow all the grievances and anger in his heart. Let's go. Prince Yuanzhua grit his teeth. Perfected Immortal Qing cupped his fists towards Fairy Qing before leaving with Prince Yuanzhua and Lone Star, disappearing into the horizon before long. Chapter 2144, 2144 Joining the Academy. 2144 Joining the Academy. Prince Yuanzhua, the storm in the Immortal Sect selection gradually calmed down. Yang Ruoxu heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal, he was only a step away from death earlier on. If Fairy Qing had not arrived in time, he would have been killed by Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Of course, Yang Ruoxu was puzzled as well. From what he knew, Senior Sister Qing was indeed quiet and aloof from worldly affairs. She was often in seclusion painting on her main peak and rarely appeared. He had never heard of her getting too close to anyone. He had joined the sect for tens of thousands of years and had only seen Senior Sister Qing a few times from afar during this period of time. He did not have the chance to interact with her, let alone speak to her or even befriend her. Fairy Qing's actions today were indeed strange. Of course, Yang Ruoxu did not think too much about it. He merely thought that Fairy Qing had helped him because she happened to pass by and saw that her fellow sect mate was in trouble. Thank you for your help, Senior Sister Qing. Yang Ruoxu bowed respectfully to Fairy Qing. Su Zimo stood out as well and bowed to Fairy Qing. Thank you, Fairy Qing. No matter why Fairy Qing appeared and fought against Zither Immortal Meng Yao, he should be grateful that she saved his life. Fairy Qing had an indifferent expression and did not say anything. She merely nodded and did not look at the two of them anymore. Suddenly, she sensed something and her gaze shifted to an ordinary carriage in the crowd. Amazing! The plain-robed woman could not help but praise internally. Princess, the painting Immortal seems to have discovered us. The girl was surprised. Ever since Fairy Qing appeared, the plain-robed woman had not appeared and there was no activity in the carriage. To think that Fairy Qing would discover them right away in a crowd of millions. As the painting Immortal, Fairy Qing's eyesight is naturally extremely strong. If not for that skill, how could she capture the dermic Tao and divine charm of all living beings in the world? The plain-robed woman said softly. She smiled gently and nodded in the direction of Fairy Qing through the curtain of the carriage. Fairy Qing nodded in return. Yang Ruoxu turned around and looked at the 100 people selected from the Immortal Sect selection. The Immortal Sect selection will continue. Zimo, are you willing to join Heaven and Earth Academy? Hold on. Right then, Heavenly Abyss suddenly spoke and looked at Zimo. Earlier on, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect was forced to withdraw because of the circumstances. I've already reported this matter to the Sect, and experts of the Sect will arrive soon. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect is willing to recruit you. Imperial Wind Temple can agree to recruit you too, Zimo. Heaven Immortal Green Peak stood out hurriedly as well. Yang Ruoxu sneered. Indeed, there was nothing much to say when the two of them were forced to retreat by Meng Yao earlier on. However, the fact that they came back now to try and steal Zimo was rather shameless. Only, everyone could read the situation and Yang Ruoxu could not be bothered to expose them. In the end, it still depended on Zimo's choice. Thank you for your kind intentions. Almost without hesitation, Zimo cupped his fists towards Heaven Abyss and Heaven Immortal Green Peak before saying, I'm willing to join Heaven and Earth Academy. Initially, he was indeed inclined towards Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. That was because on the Dragon Abyss Star, he had conflicts with 3 perfected immortal experts of Flying Immortal Sect, Heaven and Earth Academy, and Imperial Wind Temple. However, earlier on, it was because of Yang Ruoxu's persistence and Fairy Qing's timely appearance that he was able to survive. If he were to enter Mountain Sea Immortal Sect now, wouldn't he be an ungrateful person? Heaven Abyss sighed gently with a regretful expression. Yang Ruoxu's expression softened as he nodded to Zimo. Come over and stand behind me. Zimo obeyed and stood in the camp of Heaven and Earth Academy. At that moment, he truly felt at ease. After ascending to the upper world, the environment he was in was extremely cruel and dangerous. It was always filled with danger, and he could die at any moment. Now that he had Heaven and Earth Academy backing him, he could cultivate openly. No matter how strong Prince Yuanzhou was or how powerful the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom was, they would not dare to capture him at Heaven and Earth Academy. From this day forth, anyone who wanted to bully the young with their cultivation realm would have to think about Heaven and Earth Academy backing him. When Fairy Qing saw that nothing was wrong, she did not bid farewell to everyone and turned to leave with the ice butterfly, disappearing into the horizon before long. We should leave too. Within the carriage, the plain-robed woman said softly, Princess, aren't you going to stay to see which immortal sect Prince Yunlei will join? The girl said, Princess Scarlet Rainbow is next. After her is Prince Yunlei. Him? The plain-robed woman shook her head gently, seemingly uninterested, and said casually, I don't know which immortal sect he will join, but it definitely won't be Heaven and Earth Academy. Why? The girl asked. The plain-robed woman did not explain, and her spirit consciousness moved, controlling the carriage to leave the place as well. In midair, the second person with the most number of coiling dragon badges was Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Princess Scarlet Rainbow's talent and potential were equally terrifying. If not for Zimo, this princess would have been the first person recruited by the 4 immortal sects with all their might. Of course, the 4 Heaven Immortals knew that Princess Scarlet Rainbow would most likely join Imperial Wind Temple. Flying Immortal Sect is interested, Heaven Immortal White Sea said in a deep voice. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect is interested, Heaven Abyss added. Heaven Immortal Green Peak chuckled. Fellow Taoists, to be fair, the speed of Scarlet Rainbow's movement technique is her greatest advantage. If she can join Imperial Wind Temple, she can maximize that advantage. There's no need for the two of you to fight. Imperial Wind Temple is the most suitable. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow saw Heaven Immortal Green Peak ramble on, she waved it off. Exalted Immortal, there's no need to say anything more. I want to join Heaven and Earth Academy. MMM? The smile on Heaven Immortal Green Peak's face froze, and he swallowed his words with an awkward expression. The other three Heaven Immortals revealed surprised expressions as well. Scarlet Rainbow, are you sure? Heaven Immortal Green Peak frowned and asked in a deep voice. You should know that you can only unlock your potential completely after joining Imperial Wind Temple. Initially, I wanted to join Imperial Wind Temple. Pausing for a moment, Princess Scarlet Rainbow glared at the green-robed scholar in the Heaven and Earth Academy formation and smiled gently, revealing her petite canine teeth. However, I've changed my mind now. Heaven Immortal Green Peak harumphed coldly and said nothing more. Naturally, young Ruoxu was delighted and nodded slightly to Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Scarlet Rainbow, come over as well. Princess Scarlet Rainbow giggled and ran to the formation of Heaven and Earth Academy, standing beside Su Zimo. Little Earth Immortal, I told you that you won't be able to escape, right? Princess Scarlet Rainbow looked askance at Su Zimo with a crafty expression and sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Su Zimo lowered his head expressionlessly, as though he had not heard anything. Humph, what are you acting cool for? Princess Scarlet Rainbow secretly extended her finger and poked Su Zimo's ribs. To think that the Green Lotus True Body would be incomparably tough. Princess Scarlet Rainbow's poke nearly snapped her finger and she gasped in pain, almost crying out. Chapter 2145, 2145 Outer Sect Disciples. 2145 Outer Sect Disciples. The Immortal Sect selection continued, and it was Prince Yunlei's turn. Although all four Immortal Sects wanted him, he pondered for a long time and chose Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. For Prince Yunlei, it did not matter which Immortal Sect he chose. The only thing he had to take note of was to avoid Heaven and Earth Academy. That was because Su Zimo had joined Heaven and Earth Academy. If he were to join the Academy as well, he would be suppressed by Su Zimo for a long time to come. That was difficult for him to accept. Prince Yunlei did not realize that he had subconsciously believed that he could not surpass Su Zimo. Without anyone interfering, the Immortal Sect selection was successfully completed and ended quickly. The four Immortal Sects left Coiling Dragon Mountain Range with the disciples they recruited this time round and returned to their sections. Although the Immortal Sect selection was over, many of the cultivators that lingered around Coiling Dragon Mountain Range were still unwilling to leave and discuss things. It was almost certain that before long, everything that happened in the Immortal Sect selection would spread through the entire divine firmament as quickly as possible. A grade 6 Earth Immortal who ascended from the lower worlds killed more than 100 execution guards. 2 of the 4 great fairies gathered and almost fought. The Painting Immortal might already have a Tao companion. Once spread, every piece of news could ignite divine firmament mainland. Many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy were on a gigantic ship that traveled through the clouds. The ship was around 30 feet long and had 3 levels. Each level was exquisitely decorated with an ancient charm. There were all sorts of items in the cabins. Standing on the deck, Su Zimo welcomed the breeze and recalled his experiences of the past 3,000 years since his ascension, feeling sad. Both the human emperor and Dai, you had once said that the environment of the upper world was extremely cruel. However, Su Zimo had not expected it to be so vile. Even with his talent and methods, he barely managed to survive till this point and had encountered countless dangers. If it was anyone else, it would be even more difficult. Many of his old friends in Tianhuang mainland had already ascended, but he did not know where they were. Su Zimo could not help but feel worried. It was especially so for ascenders with meek personalities such as Xiaoning, Tao Yao, and Little Fox, who knew what sort of hardships they would experience in the upper world. Of course, even if he was worried, there was nothing he could do about it. According to their different physiques, cultivation techniques, and races, ascenders would ascend to different places. Even in the heavenly world, It was difficult for Su Zimo to find old friends who had ascended within the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain of the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain, let alone the entire upper world. The Divine Firmament Immortal Domain was way too huge. Given Su Zimo's movement technique, even if he did not encounter any danger or obstacles, it would take him dozens of years to cross the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Searching for someone in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain was even more difficult than searching for a needle in a haystack. If nothing else held him back in the lower worlds, the martial Dao Prime body would soon ascend as well. What are you thinking about? Right then, a crisp voice sounded from the side. Without turning back, Su Zimo knew that it was Princess Scarlet Rainbow of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. Nothing much, Su Zimo replied casually. Oh, Princess Scarlet Rainbow continued. You ascended from the lower worlds. Why are you so powerful? Right. What was the divine power of the pair of golden wings you released previously? How was it so fast that you disappeared in a flash? Also, do you know myriad transformations? How can you change your appearance casually? The flame secret skill you released was also very powerful. I'm well versed in many secret skills of fire too. You should know that the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom was founded on the Tao of Fire, right? In this aspect, even the four immortal sects can't compare to us. If you want to break through in the Tao of Fire, we can find an opportunity for you to head to the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom with me. I'll take you to the library in the palace to take a look. In the past few days, Princess Scarlet Rainbow would run to Su Zimo's side and chat with him. Su Zimo was extremely frustrated, but he could not say it explicitly. He did not chase Princess Scarlet Rainbow away and merely replied occasionally. Compared to Prince Yuan Zhua and Princess Mingyao, while this princess of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom was talkative and curious about everything, she was much better than the other two. There was no condescending aura around Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Although she knew that he was someone who had ascended from the lower worlds, there was no contempt in her eyes. Su Zimo gradually adapted to the nagging of Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Slowly, he could contemplate his own thoughts while listening to her ramble without being affected. Although he was out of danger, the uneasiness in Su Zimo's heart did not dissipate. He could not understand why Prince Yuan Zhua would appear at the Immortal Sect selection. From the looks of it, Prince Yuan Zhua clearly knew his whereabouts. Furthermore, Prince Yuan Zhua knew what he looked like after transformation. How could this be? Everyone, Heaven and Earth Academy is up ahead. Right then, Yang Ruoxu's voice sounded. Su Zimo snapped out of his stupor and put aside the doubts in his mind for the time being. Prince Yuan Zhua was probably the only one who could clear those doubts. Su Zimo looked over. At the end of the horizon, a series of mountain peaks appeared. Some of them towered into the clouds, towering and upright with countless vegetation and flowers growing on them. Amidst the flowers, majestic palaces rose one after another. If they were slightly closer, everyone would be able to hear a series of shocking explosions. On the many mountain peaks, 1,000-feet-long waterfalls poured down one after another. Similar to galactic rivers, they flowed into the lakes below, causing huge splashes that sounded like thunder. The galactic rivers fell and mist filled the air, forming auspicious clouds that floated among the mountains like a paradise. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with shock. Even though he had seen many sects and paradise lands, they were far inferior compared to the scene before him. Compared to the scene before him, the feng shui terrain of Astral Sect seemed a little shabby. More importantly, after entering this place, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the heaven and earth essence chi here was several times richer than outside. In other words, if he cultivated here, his speed would be many times faster than outside. It's no wonder why the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms are able to nurture so many paragons and monster incarnates. With such a cultivation environment in feng shui, one can cultivate with half the effort. Su Zimo sighed internally. Everyone. Yang Ruoxu looked at Su Zimo and the others. From this day forth, you guys will be outer sect disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy. This is where the outer sect of the Academy is located. Su Zimo was shocked. Despite the scene, This was merely a cultivation ground for outer sect disciples. What sort of a paradise awaited inner sect disciples and legacy disciples? Yang Ruoxu continued, I'll send you guys here. After you head down, an outer sect steward will receive you. There, you can collect your outer sect disciple badges. Of course, you guys can also choose some servants in the outer sect to help you deal with some trivial matters. Every outer sect disciple can choose 10 servants. As for anything else, the outer sect steward will tell you. Chapter 2146, 2146 10,000-year meet. 2146 10,000-year meet. Yang Ruoxu said in a deep voice, additionally, let me remind you guys. Although you've already surpassed most cultivators of the same cultivation realm after entering the academy, cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. You must not slack off at all. In about 1,000 years, the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's 10,000-year meet will begin. All of you should have heard that, as the name implies, the 10,000-year meet is a cultivation gathering held once every 10,000 years. At that time, many cultivators of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain will be gathered. At this 10,000-year meet, there will be the largest marketplace in 10,000 years with countless unique treasures gathered by the Paragon disciples of the major sects and factions. At that time, these Paragon disciples will have the most intense collision to fight for a spot on the Earth ranking. Su Zimo was enlightened. So, the fight for the Earth ranking was at the Immortal Dao meet that was held once every 10,000 years. There were many motives for such a gathering. On the one hand, it was to gather the paragons of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and provide them a chance to make a name for themselves. On the other hand, it could also give many cultivators in seclusion a chance to exchange pointers. Yang Ruoxu said, the venue of the 10,000-year meet is different each time. Almost all of them are held in the regions of the 3 immortal kingdoms and 4 immortal sections. Apart from Divine Firmament Palace, only the 7 major factions could hold such a grand cultivation event in Divine Firmament Mainland. I know. Suddenly, Princess Scarlet Rainbow shouted and said smugly, the next 10,000-year meet will be held in our Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. That's right. Yang Ruoxu nodded slightly and continued, there are a total of 100 spots on the Earth ranking. The major sects and factions value the Earth ranking immensely, and it's the same for the Academy. On the one hand, it's a symbol of honor. On the other hand, the higher one's ranking on the Earth ranking, the greater the benefits they will receive. Apart from that, if any of the outer sect disciples of the Academy can enter the top 10 of the Earth ranking, they can join the inner sect and advance and enjoy the cultivation resources of the inner sect disciples even before they become heaven immortals. What cultivation resources do inner sect disciples have? Do they get more essence spirit stones? Someone in the crowd asked. Yang Ruoxu smiled gently. Outer sect disciples can receive 1,000 essence spirit stones a year. Internal sect disciples can receive 10 times that number. In other words, they can receive 10,000 essence spirit stones. Additionally, Yang Ruoxu paused for a moment before continuing, as an inner sect disciple, you also have a chance to collect essence spirit liquid. The crowd exclaimed. It seemed like essence spirit liquid was something that was extremely famous, but Su Zimo had never heard of it. Essence spirit liquid is purer and richer than essence spirit stones. There are extremely few impurities, and it's easier to absorb and refine it. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow saw Su Zimo's puzzled expression, she sent a voice transmission secretly. A single drop of essence spirit liquid is comparable to 10,000 essence spirit stones. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. It was no wonder why Heaven and Earth Academy was a heaven-grade sect. They actually had such good stuff. If essence spirit liquid was coupled with the richer Heaven and Earth essence chi in the inner sect environment, one's cultivation speed would definitely increase by another level. Yang Ruoxu left a few more reminders before turning to leave. Su Zimo and the others descended, and there was already an outer sect steward waiting below. The outer sect steward's surname was Chen, and he was skinny. He was a grade 9 Earth Immortal, and looked at Su Zimo and the others coldly. Everyone had to collect a few items from Steward Qin. Identity badge. Upon receiving it, they had to carve their names on it. Su Zimo received the identity badge and rubbed his fingers gently. The identity badge was made from an unknown wood and was extremely tough and indestructible. Princess Scarlet Rainbow came to the side and whispered, "The material used for our identity badges is different from the inner sect disciples. Theirs are made from rare metals and can even be used as dermic treasures. I heard that the identity badges of legacy disciples are made of jade. If they wear it on their bodies all the time, it can even nourish their essence spirits." The academy did not have any uniform requirements for the attire of disciples and was more casual. Apart from the identity badge, there was also a manual with many rules of the sect as well as reward and punishment mechanisms. The first lesson for you guys after joining the academy is to memorize the sect's rules when you head back. Don't leave anything out. Steward Qin said coldly, "Don't regret it when you break the rules and are punished. All of you, listen up. I don't care what your identities were in the past. After entering the academy, you only have one identity, a disciple of the academy." It was clear that Steward Qin was trying to establish dominance among the newcomers. However, for Su Zimo and the others to be able to stand out in the Immortal sect selection, all of them were paragons and had experienced countless bloodshed. Although they were respectful on the surface, they thought nothing of Steward Qin's words. Steward Qin sneered, "Don't blame me for not reminding you guys. In each batch of newcomers, there are always foolish ones. For light offenses, you might be stripped of your status as an outer sect disciple and be punished to become a servant. If it's serious, you might be kicked out of the academy or even killed on the spot." At that point, everyone's hearts skipped a beat as they gradually realized the gravity of the matter. Sensing the fear in everyone's eyes, Steward Qin looked satisfied. "I'll put it bluntly. If I catch any of you making mistakes, don't blame me for not taking our relationship into account. Of course, I don't have any relationship with you guys to begin with." With that said, he flicked his robes and turned to leave, leaving everyone with a skinny back view. Princess Scarlet Rainbow sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness, "Little Earth Immortal, you don't have to listen to his threats. There's an outer sect disciplinary elder. Even if anything happens, this steward won't be the one to enforce the rules." Most of these outer sect stewards were outer sect disciples in the past as well. However, they failed to break through to the Heaven Immortal realm even after cultivating for a long time. As such, they could only take on jobs such as stewards in the outer sect and rely on that status to exert dominance. There's nothing much to them. Su Zimo nodded. "Let's choose a few servants first so that they can help us with some trivial stuff." Princess Scarlet Rainbow pulled Su Zimo and wanted to take a look at the servants area. Although she was a princess of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, she had just entered the academy and everything was new to her. She wanted to take a look around. "I don't need servants." Su Zimo shook his head. "Princess, go on your own." He intended to enter seclusion right away after joining the academy. There was still 1,000 years to the 10,000-year meet, and time was relatively pressing. When he received the inheritance in Astral Sect, he had accumulated a large amount of heaven and earth essence chi in his body. He wanted to enter seclusion now to refine the heaven and earth essence chi. He wanted to raise his cultivation before the 10,000-year meet as soon as possible. He was the number one of the Immortal Sect selection. However, he might not have absolute confidence in the fight for the Earth ranking if the difference in cultivation realm was too great. There was always someone better out there. For example, the Zixin Immortal Kingdom already had a monster incarnate like Yunting. At the 10,000-year meet, the Earth ranking would be ranked again and countless paragons and monster incarnates would appear. Chapter 2147, 2147 Seclusion, 2147 Seclusion. If you have servants, they can help you deal with many things. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said, "For us, we might be in seclusion most of the time. Outer sect disciples also get a spirit herb garden. Although it's not big, we need someone to take care of it. It's best to leave it to the servants. If there's any news or trivial matters, you can leave it to the servants. For example, the servants can collect the 1,000 Essence Spirit Stones distributed by the Essence Spirit Pavilion every year. Zimo flipped through the ancient book in his hands and pointed to one of the pages. It says here that the Essence Spirit Stones distributed by the Essence Spirit Pavilion each year can also be withheld temporarily and stored in the Essence Spirit Pavilion. I can collect everything at one go only when I need it. Princess Scarlet Rainbow asked, "What will you cultivate with if that's the case?" Zimo smiled and did not explain. Back on the Dragon Abyss Star, the dragon girl he encountered gave him a storage bag with 10 million Essence Spirit Stones. It was enough for him to cultivate for 3,000 years. At the very least, he would not lack Essence Spirit Stones for the next 1,000 years. He was the Green Lotus True Body, and there was a high chance that some phenomenon would be leaked when he cultivated. It was inconvenient to have servants by his side. Princess Scarlet Rainbow persuaded him for a while more, but Zimo rejected her politely and went straight to his residence. There were tens of thousands of Outer Sect disciples in Heaven and Earth Academy. Even so, the treatment of every Outer Sect disciple was better than Inner Sect disciples of Other Earth or Black-Raid sects. Zimo's residence was located at the foot of a beautiful mountain peak. Beside it was a waterfall that fell from the skies, forming a lake shrouded by clouds. The surroundings were filled with lush greenery. In fact, there were even squirrels and mystical demon beasts such as cranes roaming in the vicinity. The demon beasts were not afraid of humans. Even for ferocious beasts, they did not attack cultivators with identity badges of the academy. The residence of Outer Sect disciples was not simple either. There was a gigantic courtyard, rooms for cultivation, pill refinement, and weapon refinement, as well as a resting place for servants. Outside the residence was a huge medicinal field where spirit herbs and immortal herbs could be planted at will. Zimo entered the courtyard and injected essence chi into his identity badge. The patterns on the identity badge suddenly shone brightly and entered every corner of the courtyard. Thereafter, the glow on the identity badge gradually faded. It was recorded in the sect manual that if someone stayed in the courtyard, there would be a distinct barrier and restriction. Without the owner's permission, cultivators of the same sect would not be able to barge in. Zimo entered the cultivation room and assumed a lotus position, letting out a long breath. Ever since he ascended, it was only at this moment that he had truly settled down. He no longer had to flee everywhere or worry that a calamity would descend upon him at any moment. As one's cultivation grew, the difficulty of cultivating would increase as well. If nothing unexpected happened in the next 1,000 years, Zimo had a chance of breaking through to the level 7 Earth Essence Realm, or even cultivating to the peak of a grade 7 Earth Immortal. Zixin Immortal Kingdom, Library. The plain-robed woman had already returned from Coiling Dragon Mountain Range and was flipping through an ancient book. Before long, hurried footsteps could be heard coming from behind her. Without turning back, the plain-robed woman could guess who it was. In this library, this particular younger brother of hers was the only one who could be so unruly. "Sister, I heard that there's news of Zimo?" Before he arrived, a voice sounded, breaking the tranquility of the library. Frowning slightly, the woman turned around and saw a man with sharp brows and starry eyes striding over. There was a sharp glint in his eyes, and he had a domineering aura. It was the most famous monster incarnate of Divine Firmament Mainland in the past 100,000 years, Prince Yunting. When Yunting saw the anger on the woman's face, he quickly realized something and smiled embarrassedly, whispering, "Sister, don't scold me. I'll just lower my voice." Loud voices were not allowed in the library. Yunting had been lectured by his sister many times because of this. However, when he heard the news of Zimo this time round, Yunting was so excited that he forgot about it and ran over excitedly. The plain-robed woman's expression softened as she sized up Yunting. She nodded and said, "You've gained quite a bit from this seclusion. You've broken through to the Heaven Essence Realm." "Of course. Don't you know who I am?" Yunting raised his head and said proudly, "What's Zimo's cultivation realm now? He must be many realms behind me by now, right? He's a grade 6 Earth Immortal now." In terms of cultivation speed, he's slightly inferior to you, the plain-robed woman said. Yun-Ting chuckled. A grade 6 Earth Immortal? His cultivation speed is already very fast. However, against an opponent like me, he has no choice but to submit in the future. I'm not finished yet. You have nothing to be proud of, the plain-robed woman said. The reason why you cultivated faster than him is because you only specialize in the Sword Dao and inherited 2 secret classics of the Sword Dao. You possess such opportunities as well as the endless resources of our immortal kingdom. As for him, he can only depend on himself and was hunted constantly with his life in danger. Your starting points are different. It's hard to say who's better. If it was in a different environment, he might not be inferior to you. Yun-Ting was indignant and was naturally upset. Just as he was about to argue, the plain-robed woman continued, furthermore, there's no need for cultivators to compete in cultivation speed. Also, you've cultivated too quickly in the Earth Essence realm and your foundation is unstable. There's a high chance that this will be a hidden ailment in the future. Yun-Ting said, that's right, there's indeed no need to compete in cultivation speed. However, if I fight him again, he won't be a match for me. That's not for sure. The plain-robed woman shook her head. If you guys battle in the same cultivation realm, the outcome between you and him will be indeterminate. Impossible. Yun-Ting waved his hand. When I was a grade 7 Earth Immortal, I defeated all the Earth Immortal experts of the 4 Immortal sections. Although I did not take part in the fight for the Earth ranking, if I claim to be the second strongest Earth Immortal, who would dare claim they're the first? What rights does Suzimo have? The plain-robed woman smiled and recounted the events of the Immortal Sect selection. Yun-Ting's eyes lit up when he heard that. There was no fear in them. Instead, the fighting spirit in his eyes intensified. When the plain-robed woman saw that, she nodded to herself. Her younger brother's defeat in the Emperor's tomb back then did not affect him. Instead, it tempered his Dao heart even more. The main reason why Yun-Ting did not take part in the fight for the Earth ranking was because he was already publicly acknowledged as the #1 Earth Immortal in the entire Divine Firmament mainland. When he was a grade 7 Earth Immortal, he could sweep through the 4 Immortal sections. Who would be a match for him when he cultivated to become a grade 9 Earth Immortal? However, at that moment, Yun-Ting felt a sense of regret. If he had known earlier, he would have suppressed his cultivation realm and made a breakthrough later. That way, he could fight Suzimo again at the 10,000-year meet. Right now, he had already cultivated to the Heaven Immortal realm and could no longer take part in the fight for the Earth ranking at the 10,000-year meet. Suddenly, Yun-Ting burst into laughter. It's fine. I'll wait for him at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. At that time, I'll fight him for the Heaven ranking. Chapter 2148, 2148 Empty Tomb, 2148 Empty Tomb, Tianhuang Mainland, Songlang Mountain Range. In accordance to Ji Yaoshua's wishes, the martial Dao Prime Body buried her here. He did not leave and instead guarded her quietly for almost a year. Actually, for the martial Dao Prime Body, there was nothing worth longing for in the lower worlds. However, he did not leave. That was because there was something that he could not figure out. How did Ji Yaoshua die? Ji Yaoshua's talent was not extremely poor. On the contrary, she possessed a heaven spirit root right from the start of her cultivation and was definitely someone with exceptional talent. Even if her talent was extremely poor, the martial Dao Prime Body had given her countless treasures, immortal pills and elixirs through Tao Yao all these years. It could even be said that the martial Dao Prime Body had sought out all treasures that could possibly be found in the lower worlds for her to consume. With so many treasures, even a mere mortal with an ordinary body should have broken through to the void reversion realm in 3,000 years. However, Ji Yaoshua's cultivation remained stagnant. The strange thing was that although Ji Yaoshua's lifespan decreased day by day, her face did not show any signs of aging. What was the reason for that? For the past year, the martial Dao Prime Body guarded Ji Yaoshua's grave and pondered over all possibilities. Could Ji Yaoshue have been silently cursed by someone when she was alive? Suddenly, a thought flashed through the mind of the martial Tao prime body. That was indeed possible. The power of a curse was sinister and terrifying. It could indeed have such an effect. However, the witch race had long been destroyed by Dai Yu. Where did a curse like this come from? Furthermore, he had checked on Ji Yaoshue's condition previously and did not discover anything unusual. The gaze of the martial Tao prime body landed on a tomb not far away. After pondering for a long time, he decided to open the tomb and check on Ji Yaoshue's corpse. Although this action was disrespectful to the dead, the martial Tao prime body would definitely not allow Ji Yaoshue to die without understanding why. Over the years, he had obtained many essence spirit stones from the God realm. Coupled with the Tao fruit of Qing Yunyu that he refined, he had already cultivated to the 8th level of the Fate Ring realm. Back then, he could not detect anything unusual. Now that his cultivation had advanced, he decided to check again. If there was truly anyone who casted a curse in secret to kill Ji Yaoshue, he would capture that person even if it meant death. The martial Tao prime body advanced and waved his robes, tearing through the mud on the tomb and revealing the coffin within. This coffin was created by the martial Tao prime body cutting down a stalk of soul-nourishing wood and could last for 10,000 years without rotting. The Mingwang prayer beads were made from the soul-nourishing wood. The martial Tao prime body extended his palm and curved his fingers. He grabbed gently through the void and lifted the lid of the coffin. The moment the coffin lid fell, the martial Tao prime body was stunned. Even with his temperament, his eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. How was that possible? The martial Tao prime body took a few more steps forward and took a deep breath. Closing his eyes, he focused his gaze. The result was the same. The coffin was empty. Ji Yaoshue's corpse had vanished. The only thing left in the coffin was the robe that Su Zimo had made for her. It was so old that it was almost pale now. However, Ji Yaoshue's corpse was gone. The martial Tao prime body had not expected such an outcome after opening the coffin. Ji Yaoshue passed away right in front of him, and he buried her here personally. For the past year, the martial Tao prime body had not left her side at all. There was no way anyone would take away Ji Yaoshue's corpse. However, the truth before him was that Ji Yaoshue's corpse had vanished right under the nose of the martial Tao prime body. In fact, he did not even notice it. The martial Tao prime body walked forward and picked up the clothes in the coffin. There was still a faint fragrance lingering on the clothes. The martial Tao prime body put away the clothes and stood in deep thought. He had roamed countless worlds of the lower worlds and witnessed many strange and mysterious powers, but he could not explain what was happening before him. Initially, the martial Tao prime body wanted to unravel the mystery of Ji Yaoshue's death. However, he did not expect to fall into an even greater mystery. Heavenly Wolf. The martial Tao prime body summoned a drop of blood from his storage bag with a single thought. That drop of blood contained a spirit consciousness from the upper world. The martial Tao prime body knew that one day he would ascend to the upper world. Therefore, he did not kill Heavenly Wolf. Instead, he kept it by his side for the time being, and it might be of use when he ascended to the upper world in the future. Heavenly Wolf knew a lot. However, it was extremely stubborn and refused to reveal many things. After the martial Tao prime body controlled the karmic flames, tribulation fire, martial spirit fire, and dragon phoenix flames, and tortured him continuously, he gradually submitted. The origin of the hell suppression tripod was also revealed by Heavenly Wolf. Great Master, what can I do for you? The drop of blood in midair transformed into the appearance of a tiny wolf demon with a humble expression. It lowered its head towards the martial Tao prime body with a pandering gaze. Heavenly Wolf could not defend against the 4 flames of the martial Tao prime body and had already acknowledged him as its master. The martial Tao prime body recounted the disappearance of Ji Yaoshue's corpse before asking, "Do you know the reason?" Heavenly Wolf was confused as well. "I don't know either." Heavenly Wolf said, "If the corpse is decomposed, it will definitely leave traces in the coffin. Of course, it's impossible for the corpse to be moved from under your watch as well, Great Master. This matter did not involve any secrets, and there was no need for Heavenly Wolf to hide anything. The martial Tao Prime Body did not use his flames to burn Heavenly Wolf either. He stood in front of the empty coffin and was silent for a long time before suddenly asking, "Is there reincarnation in the netherworld and the upper world?" "Yes." Heavenly Wolf replied immediately with a firm tone. "No matter what living being it is, after they die, they will enter the 6 paths of reincarnation and leave their marks in the netherworld. Some experts of the upper world can even leave their soul imprints after cultivating to level 3 of the perfected one realm. They will be able to pass through the 6 paths of reincarnation without their imprints being destroyed. If they are reborn in the future and guided into cultivation, they might even be able to awaken their memories of their previous life after reaching the perfected immortal realm." The martial Tao Prime Body nodded. In the years that the Green Lotus True Body roamed the upper world, he had heard of some legends of reincarnated immortals, but he had not met them yet. To think that the conditions to become a reincarnated immortal were so stringent. It was only possible if their cultivation were at the perfected immortal realm in this current lifetime. There was naturally no way Ji Yaoxue could have any soul imprint after her death. However, as Heavenly Wolf had said, no matter what living being it was, they would leave traces in the netherworld after they died. One day, he should head to the netherworld to take a look. That was probably the only way he could resolve this mystery about Ji Yaoxue. The martial Tao Prime Body heaved a deep breath and waved his robes, burying the empty tomb as he murmured, "Let's go. It's time to leave." "Where to?" Heavenly Wolf asked. "The upper world," the martial Tao Prime Body replied. Chapter 2149, 2149 Fiend Domain. 2149 Fiend Domain. At the mention of the upper world, Heavenly Wolf's eyes shone with excitement. However, he retracted it quickly and the glint vanished. The martial Tao Prime Body put Heavenly Wolf back into his storage bag. In a corner of his storage bag, a silver light shone, and he took it out with a single thought. It was a silver mask from the upper world and was also a treasure. Not only could it conceal one's appearance, it could also block the detection of others' spirit consciousnesses. Back then, Heavenly Wolf was stored in this silver mask and fell from the upper world with the Hell Suppression Tripod. The martial Tao Prime Body pondered for a moment and wore the silver mask. The silver mask was as thin as cicada wings and covered most of his face. It did not affect his breathing at all and revealed a pair of deep eyes. He did not know where he would land for his ascension. Because the Green Lotus True Body was hunted when he ascended, out of caution, the martial Tao Prime Body still intended to wear the silver mask. Furthermore, the Green Lotus True Body had just established himself in the upper world. If the martial Tao Prime Body were to reveal his true appearance after ascending, it might create even more enemies for the Green Lotus True Body and bring about unnecessary trouble. The figure of the martial Tao Prime Body rose slowly into the air and looked at the firmaments, releasing a perfected Mahayana realm spirit consciousness that triggered the heavenly tribulation. Now that the martial Tao Prime Body had cultivated to the level 8 Fate Ring realm, according to his calculations, he should have broken through from the Earth Immortal realm to the Heaven Immortal realm. At his cultivation realm, his control of his spirit consciousness was already superb. Over the years, in order to comprehend the power of the heavenly tribulation, he had even summoned it countless times and cultivated the tribulation fire. In the lower worlds, as long as one cultivated to the perfected Mahayana realm and released their spirit consciousness, they could trigger the descent of the heavenly tribulation. The martial Tao Prime Body was long used to such acts of deceiving fate. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds filled the skies and lightning rumbled with a rampant might as the heavenly tribulation appeared. That scene attracted the attention of many Tianhuang mainland cultivators. Among them were some of Su Zimo's old friends such as Little Fatty, Long Ro, Ji Chengtian, Solitary Cloud. Right in front of everyone, a purple-robed figure with a silver mask bathed in the power of the heavenly tribulation. His body was coiled with lightning that resembled an anaconda as he ascended slowly. The figure did not pause at all during its ascension. The apocalyptic heavenly tribulation was like an itch for this person. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation dissipated. The purple figure vanished at the end of the firmaments as well. This time round, he's truly gone, Lung Ro said softly. Everyone was silent, and everyone had emotional expressions with a hint of sadness. Although they had known Su Zimo for a long time, not everyone could cultivate to the level of ascending to the upper world after thousands of years. In fact, some of them might not be able to ascend for the rest of their lives. Ji Qingtian said, "Everyone's fates are different, and there's nothing we can ask for. I no longer have any regrets knowing Brother Su in this life. Let's cultivate properly. If 3,000 years won't do, we'll cultivate for 30,000 years. One day, we'll be able to ascend as well." Little Fatty was extremely optimistic and smiled. Who knows? By then, Bro might have already established a reputation in the upper world, and we can seek refuge with him the moment we ascend. Everyone exchanged glances and smiled. The sadness in their hearts lessened significantly as they dispersed. The martial Dao prime body could not help but feel a tremendous suction force wrap around him and fly upwards. Initially, when he looked down, he could still see Tianhuang mainland beneath. As the distance between them increased, Tianhuang mainland became as insignificant as dust and eventually vanished from his line of sight completely. After an unknown period of time, the martial Dao prime body felt as though he had passed through a thin membrane. Suddenly, the environment changed and he was surrounded by faint heaven and earth essence qi. If he was not wrong, that thin membrane should be the barrier between the upper and lower worlds. The martial Dao prime body struggled slightly. Even with his level 8 fate ring strength that was comparable to a heaven immortal, he could not break free from the suction force that was restricting him. The martial Dao prime body passed through the sea of stars. A long time later, a large shadow appeared above his head and extended endlessly. Before he could react, his figure seemed to have entered a spatial tunnel. After the world spun, the figure of the martial Dao prime body stabilized. Another ascender has arrived. Including that person, we've already gathered 100 people. Capture that person and prepare to set off. The moment the martial Dao prime body stood still, a commotion broke out around him. He surveyed his surroundings. He stood in an area that resembled a sacrificial platform with rich heaven and earth essence qi surging around him. It was much richer than the boundaries between here and Tianhuang mainland. There were more than 10 cultivators standing around the sacrificial platform. All of them wore black robes and had ferocious expressions, emitting a strong blood stench. The martial Dao prime body swept his spirit consciousness. The cultivation of the cultivators varied, but they were all black immortals. Some of them were grade 7 and some were grade 8. The person with the highest cultivation was a grade 9 black immortal. Apart from his black robe, he wore armor and looked like the leader of the group. Not far away, 99 cultivators were kneeling. Every cultivator was covered in injuries, and their faces were pale. Their eyes shone with fear, and their cultivation realms were all grade 1 black immortals. From the looks of it, the 99 cultivators had just ascended. "Hey, lowlife, what are you standing there for? Get the hell down." A grade 6 black immortal walked towards the martial Dao prime body and cursed. "Which world is this?" The martial Dao prime body opened his storage bag slightly and suddenly asked. "This aura?" Heavenly Wolf sensed carefully and his eyes lit up. "This should be the Fiend domain of the heavenly world." The martial Dao prime body nodded. The heavenly world was extremely vast and could be roughly divided into 3 regions. The 9 firmament immortal domain, pure land of bliss, and the Fiend domain were separated by the sacred tree. Although he and the green lotus true body had both ascended to the heavenly world, they were not in the same region and were too far away. Notwithstanding the 9 firmament immortal domain and the Fiend domain, Even within the 9 immortal domains, the Green Lotus True Body would take dozens of years to cover given his current strength. Fiend Domain. The martial Tao Prime Body was in deep thought. When the Grade 6 Earth Immortal that walked over saw that the martial Tao Prime Body had yet to react, he could not help but laugh sinisterly and scold, "Ignorant thing. How dare you act cool in front of me?" Every Ascender who had just arrived in the upper world thought that they were the paragons of the world. However, in their eyes, all the Ascenders were fish on a chopping board that could be slaughtered at will. This person was prepared to teach the purple-robed man who had just ascended a lesson and make him suffer so that he could recognize reality. Among the kneeling crowd, an old man could not bear it and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, hurry and come down. Listen to orders lest you suffer an undeserved calamity." What undeserved calamity? The martial Tao Prime Body turned to look at the old man and asked indifferently. The old man sighed. "Young man, you've just ascended and don't know the situation yet. No matter what status you have in the lower worlds or how famous you are, you can only bow down and accept your fate when you ascend here. Do you see those corpses at the side? Those people were disobedient and were killed by them." Chapter 2150. 2150 All Dead. 2150 All Dead. Indeed, the surroundings of the sacrificial platform were filled with white bones. Some of the corpses even had fresh flesh on them and did not look like they had died for long. "Old thing, you sure are talkative." Another Grade 7 Black Immortal raised the chain in his hands and whipped down heavily. Piak. Instantly, a bloody scar appeared on the old man's body and his flesh split open. The old man grunted and shuddered with a pained expression, not daring to say anything more. In that short period of time, the Grade 6 Black Immortal had already arrived before the sacrificial platform. The person strode forward and reached for the silver mask of the martial Tao Prime Body, cursing, "How dare you wear a mask in the Fiend Domain? Take it off." Without even looking at him, the martial Tao Prime Body flicked his robes and whipped the Grade 6 Black Immortal. Poof! The body of the Grade 6 Black Immortal exploded on the spot, turning into a blood mist with his essence spirit destroyed. Everyone was silent. The black-robed cultivators were initially chatting merrily. When they saw that, their smiles froze on their faces. The 99 cultivators whose limbs were locked by chains and were kneeling on the ground were dumbfounded with shocked expressions. In their eyes, a cultivator of the upper world who was so strong that they could not resist was killed by a casual sleeve of this Ascender. How was that possible? They were all Ascenders. How could this person possess such immense power? They were not the only ones confused. The Fiend Domain cultivators of the upper world could not understand either and were stunned on the spot. The martial Tao Prime Body walked down the sacrificial platform slowly towards the dozens of people. Among everyone, the black-armored man in the lead was the first to react. He released his spirit consciousness rapidly and scanned the martial Tao Prime Body. However, that person was even more puzzled. Even with his spirit consciousness cultivation, he could not detect the cultivation realm of the Ascender. How was that possible? There was no way a cultivator of the lower worlds who had just ascended could be at a higher cultivation realm than him. Could this person have cultivated some cultivation concealment technique? That must be the case, the black-armored man judged. In reality, even heaven immortals and perfected immortal experts whose cultivation realms far surpassed his would not be able to see through the cultivation realm of the martial Tao Prime Body, let alone him. The martial Tao was different from the immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend Das. The martial Tao Prime Body created an unprecedented path and created the Fate Ring realm, opening the secret ground in his body and releasing his potential. Even the martial Tao Prime Body had to verify with the Green Lotus True Body to roughly deduce which cultivation realm the Fate Ring secret ground corresponded to. How could anyone else detect it? Ascender, you had better behave yourself. The black-armored man sent a voice transmission secretly, and the dozens of black immortals beside him dispersed rapidly. They summoned their dermic treasures and surrounded the martial Tao Prime Body. This is the territory of Yellow Sand Palace. When the black-armored man saw that everyone had already formed an encirclement around the martial Dao prime body, he was relieved and sneered, "You must be tired of living to kill here." In the Fiend domain, it's survival of the fittest and everything follows the laws of the jungle. Heavenly Wolf's voice sounded in the storage back. Other places might be pretentious, but in the Fiend domain, it's blood and killing. In this land, only the most ferocious and ruthless people can establish themselves. What's the grade of your Yellow Sand Palace? Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body asked. Black grade, of course, the black-armored man said proudly. But soon, a question arose in his mind. How could this ascender know the difference in grades between the sects and factions of the upper world? Before he could react, the martial Dao prime body pointed to the 99 ascenders kneeling on the ground beside him and asked, "What do you want them to do?" When ascenders of the lower worlds arrive in the upper world, they will naturally be enslaved by us for a period of time. The black-armored man said, "If you perform well, I can send you to the spirit field to be a spirit farmer and plant spirit herbs. It'll be easier. If you don't know what's good for you, we'll have to send you underground to mine." After the Green Lotus True Body ascended to the upper world, he did spirit farming and mining. Although the martial Dao prime body had not experienced it personally, his two true bodies were telepathic. When he heard those two things, he felt a sense of resistance. Attack. Right then, when the black-armored man saw that the martial Dao prime body seemed to be in a daze, he ordered without hesitation. The black-robed cultivators who were already raring to go attacked one after another. They summoned their dermic treasures and flying swords and slashed towards the martial Dao prime body. The black-armored cultivator conjured immortal arts and divine powers hurriedly as well and released them. Body immobilization technique. Wind summoning. Thunderstrike. Divine powers and immortal arts descended one after another. The martial Dao prime body ignored it and did not even dodge, allowing the many divine powers, immortal arts, dermic treasures, and flying swords to descend on him. When they saw that, the ascenders kneeling on the ground could not bear it and averted their gazes. The old man who reminded the martial Dao prime body earlier on felt a sliver of hope when he saw that the latter was extraordinary. But now, he sighed gently. Even if this person had steel bones, he would be beaten to a pulp by so many cultivators. The black-armored man heaved a sigh of relief. Prior to this, he was still worried because he could not detect the cultivation realm of the martial Dao prime body. But now, there should be no more accidents. Even a Grade 1 Earth Immortal might not be able to escape unscathed from such a ferocious attack. With that thought, many divine powers, immortal arts, dermic treasures, and flying swords descended and rained down on the martial Dao prime body. Divine powers and immortal arts dissipated without causing any ripples. When all the dermic treasures and flying swords struck the body of the martial Dao prime body, tinkling sounds could be heard through his clothes. Right in front of everyone, the dermic treasures and flying swords shattered and turned into a dim pile of scrap metal that scattered on the ground. Pissed. The black-robed cultivator's expression changed starkly as he gasped. What sort of methods were those? He resolved all the divine powers, immortal arts, dermic treasures, and flying swords without moving. Escape. That was the only thought in the black-armored man's mind. Without hesitation, he turned and fled without even reminding the other cultivators. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of flesh colliding behind him was shuddering. He could not help but turn back. On the battlefield behind him, an indiscernible purple figure galloped continuously. All the cultivators in front of the purple figure turned into blood mists without exception. They were all dead. The cultivators died before they could even scream. The black-armored man felt his legs go limp, and he was scared out of his wits. Not daring to look further, he took a deep breath and fled for his life. As long as he could escape to the nearest spirit mine, he might be able to survive. There were many Earth Immortal experts guarding the spirit mine. An Earth Immortal expert could definitely kill this purple-robed cultivator. Before long, the sound of collision behind him disappeared and a faint blood stench wafted over with the breeze. The black-armored man did not dare to turn back. He was afraid that he would see that cold silver mask and those indifferent and deep eyes again. Chapter 2151, 2151 Spirit Mine Robbery. 2151 Spirit Mine Robbery. Fenghan was flustered. As a Grade 9 Black Immortal of Yellow Sand Palace, he could be considered as a commander. He led his subordinates to guard this ascension sacrificial platform without any mistakes for tens of thousands of years. Cultivators who ascended from the lower worlds, regardless of race or what sort of living beings they were, would be suppressed by them and treated as slaves. Anyone who resisted would suffer the most cruel punishment and might even die on the spot. The upper world was not a paradise. It was even more so in this fiend domain that was filled with killing and blood. Countless corpses could be dug out from every single inch of land in the fiend domain. Every ascender was invincible in the lower worlds. However, in their eyes, they were as weak as ants and could be bullied at will. There had never been any changes throughout history. However, this time round, that natural order seemed to have been broken. Fenghan could not imagine how anyone who had just ascended could possess such a terrifying body. In fact, the purple-robed cultivator did not even use any other methods. He merely charged forward with his body, and no one could defend against him. All the divine powers, immortal arts, dermic treasures, and flying swords could not defend against that person's body. Fenghan fled for his life, not daring to turn back. He had already pushed his essence spirit to its limits and released all the methods to raise his movement technique. Perhaps it was because he fled too quickly, or because the purple-robed cultivator was wary, he did not encounter any danger when he escaped to the nearest Yellow Sand Palace essence spirit mine. Fenghan's fear only eased slightly when he saw dozens of Earth Immortals of Yellow Sand Palace patrolling the vicinity of the essence spirit mine at the front. He mustered his courage and turned back. There was no one behind him. The purple-robed cultivator did not chase after him at all. He had been scaring himself the entire way. Fenghan, what are you doing here instead of guarding the sacrificial platform? A Grade 2 Earth Immortal asked with a frown when he saw him. Why are you running? Why are you so flustered? What happened? Why are you so scared? Kong Yi, the commander of the spirit mine, walked over slowly and asked in a deep voice when he noticed the fear in Fenghan's eyes. At that moment, Fenghan was fleeing for his life. Be it his essence spirit or essence chi, they were both depleted and he was drenched in sweat. His face was pale, and he looked like he was still in shock. Greetings, Senior Brother Kong. Fenghan gulped before replying. A purple-robed cultivator with a silver mask just ascended from the sacrificial platform. This person killed all my underlings the moment he ascended. Fenghan recounted everything he saw in detail. The dozens of Earth Immortals frowned when they heard that. This sounded like a fantasy. How could a cultivator of the lower worlds who had just ascended kill some high-level Black Immortals of Yellow Sand Palace? Everyone exchanged glances and sneered. Fenghan, what nonsense are you spouting? Do you know what happens when you spout nonsense and deceive exalted immortals in our Yellow Sand Palace? A few Earth Immortals hollered with cold expressions. Fenghan waved it off hurriedly. Senior brothers, what I said is absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. What's the cultivation realm of the person you're referring to? Kong Yi asked indifferently. Fenghan hesitated for a moment. I couldn't detect his cultivation realm. Ha 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 ha. A series of laughter broke out from the crowd. A mocking look flashed through Kong Yi's eyes as well. Fenghan, there's only two possibilities right now. Either you're spouting nonsense, or you've been struck by some illusion technique, and everything you saw was an illusion. Fenghan wanted to speak, but stopped. He wanted to explain, but did not know how to start. In fact, he had doubts in his heart. Could he have truly fallen into an illusion and been deceived? Right then, Kong Yi suddenly asked, the person you mentioned earlier wore a purple robe and silver mask? That's right. Feng'an nodded instinctively. Thereafter, he noticed Kong Yi looking into the distance with a strange expression. Feng'an turned around. That single glance almost scared him out of his wits. In midair far away, a purple-robed man strode through the void and arrived before them in the blink of an eye. "Seen your brother Kong, that's him," Feng'an shouted. It was the martial Tao prime body. After he ascended to the upper world, his first goal was to collect a large number of cultivation resources such as essence spirit stones and essence condensation pills to absorb and refine so that he could break through to the level 9 Fate Ring realm as soon as possible. When he heard that there was an essence spirit mine nearby, he was prepared to snatch it. Due to the unique bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body and the fact that he was hunted by King Yunyu previously, his identity was sensitive. After ascending to the upper world, he had too many reservations and was restricted. After the Green Lotus True Body entered the Essence Spirit Mine, he did not dare to make any major moves and merely cultivated secretly beneath the mine. This was a different situation from the Green Lotus True Body. Nobody knew the identity of the Martial Tao Prime Body. Nobody knew who he was either. With the silver mask, the Martial Tao Prime Body was completely fearless. He asked Feng'an what grade Yellow Sand Palace was so that he could judge what would happen if he snatched the Essence Spirit Mine. Yellow Sand Palace, a black grade faction. Typically, once one cultivated to the Heaven Immortal realm, they could establish a sect or faction at the black grade. Of course, the strength of every black grade sect or faction varied. For example, Astral Sect of the Great Qing Immortal Kingdom. Sect Master Astral Rain was a grade 9 Heaven Immortal, and there were many Heaven Immortal experts in the sect. These were the top-tier black grade sections. If the sect master or leader of a faction was only a low-level Heaven Immortal, their strength would naturally be much weaker. In a massive place like the Fiend domain, there were countless factions like black grade and earth grade sections. In the territory of the Fiend domain, conflicts broke out between major sects and factions almost all the time as they fought for cultivation resources. There was no order here, and it was extremely chaotic. Some sects and factions might be destroyed within a few years after they were established. On the one hand, the Martial Tao Prime Body was here to snatch the Essence Spirit Mine. On the other hand, he wanted to test the power of the Level 8 Fate Ring realm. "You were the one who killed our Yellow Sand Palace cultivators?" Kong Yi glared at the Martial Tao Prime Body with a sharp expression and asked slowly. "That's right." The Martial Tao Prime Body did not stop. "All right, you're honest too." Kong Yi sneered and sent a voice transmission to the dozens of Earth Immortals around him. Just as he was about to attack, he said, "You sure are bold. Instead of escaping hurriedly after killing cultivators of Yellow Sand Palace, you even dare to come knocking. This Essence Spirit Mine belongs to me now." The Martial Tao Prime Body pointed at the Essence Spirit Mine not far behind him and said indifferently, as though he was describing something that was only right. "What are you talking about? How arrogant. You must have a death wish." Many Earth Immortals of Yellow Sand Palace were enraged and attacked before Kong Yi could give the order. Chapter 2152. 2152, Essence Spirit Mine Refinement. 2152, Essence Spirit Mine Refinement. Although the dozens of Earth Immortals had different cultivation realms, they released greater divine powers the moment they attacked. Dermic treasures tore through the air one after another, turning into dense spots of light that descended like a downpour. The Martial Tao Prime Body stood in midair with a deep gaze. He did not move at all, and a series of explosions sounded from his body, as though he had broken free from some chain. With every boom, the aura of the Martial Tao Prime Body would increase. A purple halo would appear behind him. Pang, pang, pang. In the blink of an eye, 6 purple halos appeared behind the Martial Tao Prime Body. 6 fate rings appeared and shone with a mysterious glow. Every single fate ring contained the Tao and dermic arts of the Martial Tao Prime Body and was extremely shocking. Under the illumination of the 6 fate rings, the Martial Tao Prime Body was like a god. His body shone with a divine light and was filled with purple qi. His might was torrential and could not be blasphemed. Kong Yi and the others were shocked when they saw that. They had never seen the purple halos behind the martial Dao Prime body before. This method and secret skill had already surpassed their imagination. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, many divine powers and dermic treasures descended and struck the martial Dao Prime body like raging tides. The martial Dao Prime body did not dodge or avoid, nor did he move. The 6 fate rings behind him trembled slightly and released purple halos, neutralizing all the attacks. The dozens of Earth Immortals were alarmed. Kong Yi's expression was terrible as well. Even if he was in the same position, he might not be able to escape unscathed from such a ferocious attack. However, the mysterious purple-robed man before him blocked everyone's attacks without moving at all. The difference was too great. The eyes of the martial Dao Prime body closed slightly as he sensed the power of the Earth Immortal realm. With just this head-on clash, he had already roughly determined that the peak level 6 Fate Ring realm could take on a grade 5 Earth Immortal head-on in terms of strength. The peak of the level 7 Fate Ring realm would be able to suppress all Earth Immortal experts in terms of strength. After the martial Dao Prime body did his calculations, he no longer wanted to get entangled with these Earth Immortals. Take my punch as well. The martial Dao Prime body opened his eyes and said indifferently. He strode forward and punched forward from more than 100 feet away. That single punch caused the world to change. Even Kong Yi, who was the furthest away and had the highest cultivation realm, felt an unimaginable, terrifying aura sweep over after that punch, as though it wanted to drown him. That punch was way too terrifying. Without witnessing that punch personally, one would never be able to understand that feeling. It was as though no living being, divine power, secret skill, or divine weapon in this world could defend against that punch. A tragic aura surged over, and the dozens of Earth Immortals turned pale. They felt suffocated and their bodies felt like they were about to explode. Escape. I can't defend against it. Many thoughts flashed through the minds of the dozens of Earth Immortals. They did not even have the courage to resist. Boom, boom. Heaven and earth rumbled. Instantly. The void before everyone seemed to be unable to withstand the power of that punch and caved in rapidly. The dozens of Earth Immortals who attacked earlier on suddenly felt a tremendous suction force. They could not control their bodies at all and flew towards the sunken void. Everyone wanted to dodge, but could not. Even Kong Yi, a grade 9 Earth Immortal, approached the fist of the martial Dao Prime body with a horrified expression. It was as though everyone was charging towards his fist with all their might. Dozens of Earth Immortals fell into the sunken void. Immediately after, the punch of the martial Dao Prime body descended. It was an apocalyptic power. Poof! There was a blood mist. Dozens of Earth Immortals died with their essence spirits destroyed without exception. I'll give it my all. Kong Yi roared and slapped his storage bag, summoning all his divine weapons and dermic treasures to throw towards the fist of the martial Dao Prime body. Crack, crack, crack. All the divine weapons and dermic treasures shattered into dust. Kong Yi's eyes widened, and he stood motionlessly in midair. His expression was dark, and the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. The martial Dao Prime body had an indifferent expression as he retracted his palm and walked towards the essence spirit mine. After he brushed past Kong Yi, the latter's body exploded without a corpse left. The spirit consciousness of the martial Dao Prime body moved and collected the storage bags of Kong Yi and the others, putting away the essence spirit stones, major essence condensation pills, and other cultivation resources. As for those divine weapons and dermic treasures, he was not interested at all. Even the dermic treasures of heaven immortals might not be able to hurt his body, let alone the dermic treasures of Earth Immortals. The martial Dao cultivated the body. Be it the 9 transformations of the martial Dao or the Fate Ring secret ground, they were both constantly tapping into the potential of his body. The martial Dao Prime body used his body as a furnace to nurture all sutras, smelt divine powers, and open up a secret ground. Even the green lotus true body could not compare to his body. There were also some divine powers and cultivation techniques in those storage bags. The martial Tao prime body flipped through them casually and threw them away when he realized that they were not worth cultivating. He had smelted too many divine powers and read many ancient books in the Kunlun ruins of Tianhuang mainland. Later on, he roamed through 1 billion minor kiliocosms and read countless divine techniques in them. Although he had just ascended, his horizons were terrifying and far surpassed the earth immortals and heaven immortals of the upper world. The cultivation techniques of the lower worlds were mostly simple compared to the upper world. However, many divine powers were passed down into the lower worlds by chance. In Tianhuang mainland, there were the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts. Right now, the most important thing for the martial Tao prime body was cultivation resources. There were hundreds of thousands of essence spirit stones in the storage bags, far from enough for him to cultivate. The martial Tao prime body entered the essence spirit mine directly. There were many ascenders underground who were still mining. Even if they heard the commotion above, they did not dare to go out and check. The martial Tao prime body killed the guard beneath casually and said in a deep voice, "The owner of this essence spirit mine has changed. Everyone in the mine can leave now." Although the voice of the martial Tao prime body was not loud, it spread to every corner of the essence spirit mine. Initially, many cultivators could not believe it. However, as time passed by, more and more cultivators walked out of the essence spirit mine and escaped from this place. In less than half a day, the essence spirit mine became empty and the ascenders left cleanly, leaving only the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body looked at the surrounding mineral veins and assumed a lotus position, channeling his blood qi. The figure of the martial Tao prime body became faintly visible and a gigantic furnace appeared on the spot. For balls of flames burned around it, as though they had formed for fire dragons that coiled around the furnace. In the blink of an eye, the furnace turned red and burned furiously. Under normal circumstances, there were many gravel impurities in the essence spirit mine that had to be excavated bit by bit. However, that was nothing to the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao furnace was incomparably domineering and had a terrifying intent that could even refine a world. Right now, the reason why the martial Tao prime body activated the martial Tao furnace was because he wanted to smelt the entire essence spirit mine. All the impurities would naturally be refined by the furnace. As for the heaven and earth essence qi in the essence spirit stone, it would be absorbed by the martial Tao furnace. Chapter 2153, 2153 Battling Yellow Sand Palace. 2153 Battling Yellow Sand Palace. Yellow Sand Palace, a black raid faction. In the Fiend domain, there were countless sects and factions like that. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace was not human. This was originally a desert where an expert of the Fiend domain died. The blood of this expert from the Fiend domain tainted the desert. Although he died, his blood still possessed a tremendous power. Under the nourishment of the expert's blood, a ball of yellow sand spirit was born in the desert. The yellow sand spirit made use of the blood of this expert from the Fiend domain and the inheritance left behind to cultivate carefully bit by bit. Before long, it entered the Tao and eventually gained accomplishments. It condensed a human body and established Yellow Sand Palace. Yellow Sand Palace had been established for more than 100,000 years. In the Fiend domain, there were not many Black Raid sects that were more than 100,000 years old. Many Black Raid sects and factions would be annexed by other sects and factions before long. Yellow Sand Palace was located at the borders of the Fiend domain, and very few experts noticed it. That was the reason why it existed for so long. Up till this point of his cultivation, as the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace, the Yellow Sand Spirit Ball had already cultivated to the level 5 Heaven Essence realm. There was no living being in the area he ruled that could challenge his authority. Essence spirit mines were rare at such borders as well. There were only 3 essence spirit mines in the territory under his jurisdiction. This day, the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace was in seclusion and suddenly felt uneasy, as though something had happened. Why are there so few essence spirit stones during this period of time? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace appeared as a middle-aged man. He wore a yellow robe and his face was gaunt and yellow. His skin was rough and his eyes were extremely sharp. He asked with a frown as he walked out. Behind him were more than 10 followers who were all Earth Immortals. When his followers heard his question, they had strange expressions that were filled with shock and fear. Some of the followers wanted to speak but stopped. Why? Someone tampered with things in secret and even dared to steal essence spirit stones meant for my cultivation? The expression of the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace darkened as he asked coldly. A follower said hurriedly, "Palace lord, you're truly sharp. Indeed, there are less essence spirit stones. However, it's not because anyone dares to steal your essence spirit stones. It's just that there's a problem with an essence spirit mine." What can happen to an essence spirit mine? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace pondered for a moment before his expression changed as he probed. Could an ancient living being have been dug out from the mine? It would be fine if it was a dead living being. If a living being that was alive was dug out, even he would have to choose to escape. Not really. A lackey said that essence spirit mine was occupied by a mysterious purple-robed man. No one knows his cultivation realm or is his match. An external cultivator? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace asked with a frown. The follower shook his head. No, I heard that he's an ascender who killed Kong E and the others. After occupying the essence spirit mine, he even released all the ascenders in the mine. Ascender? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace felt slightly relieved. How strong could an ascender of the lower worlds be? However, why did this purple-robed man release all the other ascenders in the mine? When did this happen? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace asked. Almost 10 years. A follower said, "Palace lord, you were in seclusion, so we did not dare to disturb you." A few protectors led cultivators there to retrieve the essence spirit mine. However, the follower paused for a moment and stole a glance at the expression of the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace before saying, "All of them died in the end." Humph. The expression of the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace darkened as he said slowly, "Ascender? Let's see where this ascender came from. How dare he act so arrogantly in my territory?" Pass down the order. Get Protector Shui and Protector Gu to gather all the cultivators above the Earth Immortal realm in the palace. Regardless of whether they're in seclusion, gather and prepare to set off. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace waved his hand with a murderous aura. However, the dozens of followers stood on the spot motionlessly. "MMM?" The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace swept his gaze. A follower said timidly, "Palace lord, Protector Shui and Protector Gu are both dead. Inform the remaining protectors then." The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace said sternly, "There are 7 protectors in Yellow Sand Palace. Are they all dead?" 5 of them died and the remaining 2 were scared off, the follower said with difficulty. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace had a livid expression as he took a deep breath and declared, "Cultivators of Yellow Sand Palace, listen up, everyone, gather in front of the hall and follow me." Beneath the essence spirit mine. In more than 10 years, this essence spirit mine was mostly smelted by the Martial Tao Prime Body. His methods were extremely domineering and were equivalent to forcefully absorbing the essence chi of an essence spirit mine to refine his foundation. Upon his departure, this essence spirit mine would essentially be useless. Even if someone continued digging, they would not be able to dig out many essence spirit stones. The speed of smelting an essence spirit mine in more than 10 years was rather terrifying. Even in the upper world, there was no cultivation technique that could reach such a cultivation speed and possess such a domineering absorption effect. Part of the reason why was because this essence spirit mine was not large. At the same time, the Martial Tao Prime Body had cultivated 4 Tao fires. With the augmentation of the 4 Tao fires, the refinement speed of the Martial Tao furnace was extremely shocking. Of course, the heaven and earth essence chi required for the Martial Tao Prime Body to break through was extremely shocking as well. This small essence spirit mine alone was not enough. Suddenly, Sensing something, the martial Tao Prime body opened his eyes. It was as though two purple flames were burning in the depths of the dark essence spirit mind. It's finally here. The martial Tao Prime body murmured softly and stood up slowly. Boom! There was a loud bang. The figure of the martial Tao Prime body broke out of the ground. Due to more than 10 years of smelting, the essence spirit mind beneath his feet was empty and countless gravel shattered, collapsing with dust billowing. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace had just arrived with many cultivators when he saw that. He was enraged. How dare you act so brazenly in the territory of Yellow Sand Palace? Die. Without hesitation, the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace pointed at the martial Tao Prime body, ordering coldly, kill him. This time round, Yellow Sand Palace sent more than 1,000 Earth Immortal experts with a massive might. There were even more than 10 Heaven Immortals. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace did not believe that so many people could not suppress an ascender. The Heaven Immortals attacked at the same time. One after another, supreme divine powers tore through the air. 1,000 Earth Immortals attacked and greater divine powers, dermic treasures and secret skills blanketed the skies densely. The martial Tao Prime body stood in midair with a cold silver mask on his face, as though he could be drowned at any moment against such an attack. However, purple halos condensed behind him one after another. 1, 2, 7, 8. 8 fate rings were released. All the divine powers, secret skills, and divine weapons descended and were repelled by the 8 fate rings behind the martial Tao Prime body. The 8 fate rings condensed the power of the martial Tao and contained the will of the martial Tao. They were intertwined with the dermic arts of the martial Tao and seemed eternal and unshakable. Chapter 2154, 2154 Level 9 Fate Ring Realm. 2154 Level 9 Fate Ring Realm. What is that? The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace and more than 10 Heaven Immortals and 1,000 Earth Immortals were shocked with disbelief on their faces. The 8 purple halos stood behind the purple-robed man and were interweaved with countless mysterious and complicated runes, as though they could contain the secrets of the universe. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace had lived for 200,000 years, but he had never seen such methods. A supreme divine power? There were many supreme divine powers in the upper world. Although the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace did not cultivate many of them, he had heard of them. However, he had never seen such a divine power phenomenon. The dermic treasures summoned by the 1,000 Earth Immortal experts collided with the 8 purple halos and shattered, turning into scrap metal that scattered on the ground. Even cracks appeared on the dermic treasures of Heaven Immortal experts. The difference was too great. How can that be an ascender? This must be a top-tier expert from somewhere. The martial Tao Prime body looked at the many Fiend domain cultivators present. There was no expression on his cold silver mask, and 2 red lotus flowers were vaguely reflected in his deep eyes. The martial Tao Prime body channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals repeatedly. Suddenly, many cultivators present turned incomparably hot as red flames burst forth from their bones, organs, flesh, and blood. There was no chance to dodge the flames that were born from within. Ah! A series of tragic cries sounded from the crowd. Scarlet flames burst forth from the bodies of the 1,000 Earth Immortal experts. The cultivators roared and flames spewed from their noses and mouths. In the blink of an eye, those Earth Immortal experts were engulfed by the scarlet flames and turned into gigantic human-shaped fireballs that turned into ashes before long. The ashes of those cultivators were a demonic blood-red color and fell to the ground, forming the shape of lotus flowers. The red lotus karmic fire specialized in burning karma. The heavier the negative karma on their bodies, the fiercer the karmic flames burned. Even supreme divine powers could not defend against the power of the karmic flames. How could the Earth Immortal experts withstand it? In a few breaths, they were burned to ashes. The remaining Heaven Immortals, such as the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace, were not spared either. These heaven immortals merely relied on their cultivation realms and blood chi to defend for a moment. However, the pain of the karmic flames burning their bodies was unbearable. The karmic flames could not be suppressed with blood chi and divine powers alone. On the contrary, when some heaven immortals released their divine powers, the karmic flames intensified. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace was burned to his true form, and the yellow sand was scorching red. Every single gravel was crystalline like rubies. In midair, the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace merely lasted for a dozen more breaths before the gravel shattered and his life force dissipated, dying on the spot. The cultivators of Yellow Sand Palace that arrived were completely annihilated. This also meant that Yellow Sand Palace was now removed from history. The Martial Dao Prime Body waved his sleeves and collected the storage bags of many cultivators present, gathering essence, spirit stones, and other items. Although his gains could not compare to the essence spirit mine beneath his feet, they were still considerable. The Martial Dao Prime Body took out a map and swept his gaze across it, heading towards the other two essence spirit mines of Yellow Sand Palace. Before long, the Martial Dao Prime Body arrived at the second essence spirit mine. Almost all the experts of Yellow Sand Palace died in the previous battle. The ones guarding this essence spirit mine were only black immortal cultivators. With the death of the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace, the remaining cultivators were merely a motley crowd. A casual attack from the Martial Dao Prime Body caused everyone to flee. After entering the essence spirit mine, the Martial Dao Prime Body released the ascenders beneath and cultivated in the depths of the essence spirit mine. He wanted to cultivate to the level 9 Fate Ring realm as soon as possible. According to his deduction, after entering the level 9 Fate Ring realm, he could sweep through the Heaven Essence realm and suppress all Heaven Immortal experts. Even if he encountered a perfected Immortal, he might be able to escape unscathed. Right now, he would most likely be doomed if he encountered a perfected Immortal. On the other hand, the Martial Dao Prime Body was in a hurry to raise his cultivation realm because the path beyond the Fate Ring realm was already gone. He had to cultivate to the peak of the Fate Ring realm as soon as possible before he could see the path ahead and continue to deduce the Martial Dao. The cultivation of the Martial Dao Prime Body was completely different from the cultivation dermic formulations of the Trachelia Cosm. Nobody could guide his cultivation. He would have to rely on himself for every step from now on, 50 years. The Martial Dao Prime Body left the Essence Spirit Mine and headed for the third Essence Spirit Mine in Yellow Sand Palace. Thereafter, he continued cultivating in the depths of the third Essence Spirit Mine. Year 213. The Martial Dao Prime Body left, and the third Essence Spirit Mine was already refined into ruins with its Essence Chi depleted. The Martial Dao Prime Body was still at the level 8 Fate Ring realm. Although there were only 9 levels to the Fate Ring realm, there was an incredible chasm between each level, and the difference in strength between each Fate Ring was immense. The number of Essence Spirit Stones required for the Martial Dao Prime Body to break through was unimaginable. The number of Essence Spirit Stones required for thousands of Heaven Immortals to break through might not cause much of a reaction even if he refined them all. The Martial Dao Prime Body continued advancing in the Fiend domain and compared it to the map. Before long, he chose another Black Raid faction. 8 Limbs Mountain. The sect master of this Black Raid faction was a 9-headed python. The Martial Dao Prime Body did the same and swept through the entire 8 Limbs Mountain, crushing the 9-headed python. He released all the Ascenders and occupied the 4 Essence Spirit Mines of 8 Limbs Mountain to continue cultivating. Year 333. The Martial Dao Prime Body refined all 4 Essence Spirit Mines and reappeared, overwhelming another Black Raid faction, Evil Moon Temple. Year 471. Purple Star Temple was destroyed. Year 565. Malevolent Fiend Pavilion was destroyed. Year 689. Ecstasy Monastery was destroyed. Year 796. Extreme Frost Sect was destroyed. Year 815. Bloodsea Palace was destroyed. On the 991st year after the Martial Dao Prime Body ascended to the Fiend domain, He broke through in the Fate Ring realm and condensed his ninth Fate Ring. At the same time, in the territory of the Fiend domain, the appearance of the martial Dao Prime body caused a huge stir. In less than 1,000 years, Black-Grade factions were wiped out one after another. The purple-robed man had a mysterious background and powerful methods. Instead of occupying a territory, he occupied all the essence spirit mines and released the ascenders of the lower worlds. This person would leave after cultivating and would not linger. It was said that the purple-robed man was also someone who had ascended from the lower worlds. Almost all the Black-Grade sects and factions in the vicinity were in danger. Initially, there were often fights between these Black-Grade factions. However, because of the appearance of the purple-robed man, the Black-Grade factions had a tacit understanding and quietened down to recuperate. Every sect and faction had many cultivators to track the purple-robed man and make preparations. At the borders of the Fiend domain, things were secretly set into motion and killing intent was hidden. Countless eyes were watching the purple-robed man in secret. Everyone did not know much about the purple-robed man. The only thing they were certain of was that the power he displayed was not at the level of a perfected immortal. Chapter 2155, 2155 Familiar Aura. 2155 Familiar Aura. Scarlet Dark Valley was originally an ordinary Black-Grade faction at the borders of the Fiend domain. However, in the past 10,000 years, it rose rapidly in the vicinity. Some people said that the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley once obtained a huge opportunity. He entered an ancient ruin by mistake and obtained an ancient diagram. His cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and his combat strength increased exponentially, sweeping through all the heaven immortal experts in this territory. Later on, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley retreated and had not appeared for thousands of years. It was said that the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was in seclusion cultivation and was prepared to break through. When he reappeared, he would advance to the perfected One realm and become a perfected fiend. In the upper world, cultivators of the Black, Earth, and Heaven essence realms could be referred to as immortals no matter which dermic Dao they cultivated. They were Black, Earth, and Heaven immortals. It was said that the founder of this cultivation system was someone from the Immortal Dao to begin with. Some people said that the great emperor who ruled over the previous era came from the immortal sections. As time passed by, some worlds began to have their own unique titles, such as Black and Earth Witches of the Witch world. The difference was negligible. It was the same for the heavenly world. In the Fiend domain and pure land of bliss, the cultivators of the Black, Earth, and Heaven essence realms retained their immortal sect traditions. However, once one condensed a Dao fruit and entered the perfected One realm, the way they were addressed would change. A perfected One cultivator of the Fiend domain was known as a perfected fiend, and a perfected One cultivator of the pure land of bliss was known as an Arhat. If the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley were to condense a Dao fruit and become a perfected fiend, the level of Scarlet Dark Valley would rise as well and become an Earth-grade faction. At that time, all the sects and factions in the vicinity would have to bow down. For thousands of years, although the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was in seclusion and did not appear, his reputation grew. It was because the only son of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili, had risen at a speed not inferior to the Valley Master or even faster. In the territory of thousands of kilometers around Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili was already invincible when he was only at the level 8 Heaven Essence realm. It could be said that Heaven Immortal Qili was even stronger than the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley in the past. To everyone, Heaven Immortal Qili was younger than 100,000 years old and had unlimited potential. His future accomplishments would be even greater than the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley. This day, Scarlet Dark Valley, Main Hall. Heaven Immortal Qili sat high in the middle with narrowed eyes that shone with a cold glint as he looked at the cultivators beneath him. There were dozens of people in the main hall, and they were all Heaven Immortals. Furthermore, the cultivation of these Heaven Immortals was not weak. The weakest were at least grade 7, Almost all the Heaven Immortals in the hall were the protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley. They had noble statuses in the valley and led many Earth Immortals and Black Immortals. On the left and right of Heaven Immortal Chili, there were two people sitting right beside him. Both of them were Grade 9 Heaven Immortals. Tianze and Pai Feng were the main protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley. Young Master, I've just received news that the purple-robed man has appeared once more. From the looks of it, there's a high chance he'll pass by Scarlet Dark Valley. Young Master, let me bring some men and we'll definitely be able to kill this person. Below, a burly man stood up and shouted. Protector who? You won't be able to defeat that person with your strength. A protector with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks sneered and mocked. If I can't, can you? Protector who asked loudly with widened eyes. Naturally, I can't either. In my opinion, the few of us might not be a match for that person even if we join forces. That person's background is mysterious. I'm afraid only the young master can suppress him personally, the person said. When he heard that, Heaven Immortal Chili revealed an imperceptible smile, as though he was satisfied. Tianze, Pai Feng, what do you guys think? Heaven Immortal Chili looked at the two protectors on his left and right. Tianze said in a deep voice, Young Master, for the past 1,000 years, this person has appeared every once in a while and has already destroyed close to 10 Black Raid factions such as Yellow Sand Palace, 8 Limbs Mountain, Evil Moon Temple, Purple Star Temple, and Malevolent Fiend Pavilion. From what I know, those factions also had Heaven Immortal experts presiding over. However, they were all killed by this person. He's definitely hostile. Hostile? Heaven Immortal Chili harumphed coldly and said slowly, Such a person is not allowed in my territory. I want him dead. Tianze said, In my opinion, there's no need for us to fight him. Why don't we try and recruit him as our subordinate? Pai Feng nodded slightly. Young Master, I agree with the left protector as well. Heaven Immortal Chi Li's expression turned cold as he asked, Why? Do you guys not have confidence in Scarlet Dark Valley, or me? Can't I kill this person with my capabilities? I don't dare to say anything about the entire Fiend domain, but in this land, I reign supreme against everyone beneath the perfected immortal realm. Your methods are naturally unparalleled, young master. Tianze and Pai Feng said hurriedly. Pausing for a moment, Tianze continued, However, that person is not weak and can be considered as a talent. If you can take him under your wing, it will increase your reputation. Yes, you do have a point. Heaven Immortal Chili murmured softly. Pai Feng said deeply, How about this? If that person comes, we'll give him a chance first. If he's tactful, you can take advantage of the situation and take him under his wing, young master. If he's tactless, we'll kill him on the spot. Sure, that's fine. Heaven Immortal Chili nodded slightly, very satisfied with that suggestion. 10 days later. The moment the Martial Dao Prime Body arrived at Scarlet Dark Valley, a group of cultivators welcomed him. The two people in the lead were the main protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley, Tianze and Pai Feng. The two protectors released their spirit consciousnesses and sized up the Martial Dao Prime Body carefully but could not make out anything. Fellow Taoist, our young master invites you in. Tianze cupped his fists and said, Who is your young master? The Martial Dao Prime Body wore a cold mask and asked expressionlessly. Heaven Immortal Chi Li. Pai Feng said, Our young master has already prepared a banquet and is waiting for you to take your seat, fellow Taoist. The Martial Dao Prime Body was not interested in this young master or his banquet. His only goal was cultivation resources. He wanted to cultivate as soon as possible and deduce the Martial Dao. Just as the Martial Dao Prime Body was about to reject, his expression changed and he narrowed his eyes slightly, looking into the depths of Scarlet Dark Valley. Over there, he sensed a familiar aura that he had not felt for a long time. An extremely intense hatred surged into the skies, hating the heavens and the earth and filled with negative emotions that were berserk. When Tianze saw the Martial Dao Prime Body looking into the distance, as though he was moved, he said, That's the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley. The young master has been waiting for a long time. All right, I'll go take a look. The martial Dao prime body clenched his fists instinctively and said indifferently. Tianze and Pai Feng thought that this was merely the martial Dao prime body's personality. Although they could hear the coldness in his tone, they did not take it seriously. Furthermore, everything would be under their control once he entered the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley. Chapter 2156, 2156 Battle Slave. 2156 Battle Slave. Our young master heard about your recent achievements and admires you very much. Protector Tianze of Scarlet Dark Valley said, this time round, when he heard that you were about to pass by this place, the young master specially set up a banquet and even invited the sect masters of some sects and factions in the vicinity. When these important figures heard your name, they wanted to take a look as well. Although Tianze's words were flattering the martial Dao prime body on the surface, there were two layers of meaning in his words. First, the young master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qi, was extremely prestigious in the nearby territory. Second, when he mentioned the presence of sect masters of some sects and factions, he was secretly exerting pressure on the martial Dao prime body. The eyes of the martial Dao prime body were deep and he wore a cold silver mask. No one could tell if his expression changed. He did not reply when he heard Tianze's words. At the side, Pai Feng narrowed his eyes and suddenly asked, May I know your name, fellow Taoist? Desolate Martial. The martial Dao prime body said. Pai Feng rolled his eyes and said in a seemingly casual manner, There are some rumors outside that you ascended from the lower worlds. I don't believe such words. I'm from the lower worlds. The martial Dao prime body said indifferently, I ascended less than 1,000 years ago. Tianze and Pai Feng exchanged glances. Both could see the doubt in the other's eyes. How could he destroy a group of sects and factions after ascending for 1,000 years? Everyone flew through the air and arrived at the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley before long. The martial Dao prime body surveyed his surroundings. The familiar aura earlier on was in the vicinity. However, it had vanished, and he could not determine its exact location right away. In front of the hall, a black-haired, scarlet-robed man sat on a high seat. His eyes were long and narrow as he looked down at the martial Dao prime body with a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. If he was not wrong, this should be the young master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qi. 2 rows of cultivators sat beneath Heaven Immortal Qi on both sides. The martial Dao prime body swept his spirit consciousness and could tell that the 2 rows of cultivators were top-tier Heaven Immortal experts. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The moment the martial Dao prime body entered the hall, 2 rows of Heaven Immortal experts turned to look. Some of them had cold expressions, some of them were expressionless, and some of them did not conceal the hostility on their faces. Fu. Heaven Immortal Qi did not stand up and raised his head slightly. This must be the mysterious purple-robed man who has been famous for the past 1,000 years, right? Tianze stood out and said in a deep voice, Young master, this is him. His name is Desolate Martial. Desolate Martial? Heaven Immortal Qi smirked. That title is rather ordinary. Instantly, laughter broke out on both sides of the hall. Tianze pointed to the top Heaven Immortal experts in 2 rows and introduced, This is the Palace Lord of Peerless Palace. This is the Pavilion Master of Immortal Slaying Pavilion. This is the Stronghold Lord of Heaven Azura Stronghold, and this is the Sect Master of Wind Fire Sect. Naturally, their titles were resounding, such as Immortal Slaying and Peerless. Tianze introduced the Heaven Immortal experts the entire way, but none of them stood up. They merely looked at the martial Dao prime body coldly. The martial Dao prime body did not seem to have heard Tianze's introduction and did not move at all. His eyes were half closed as he searched for the source of that hatred. Piak. Unable to hold it in any longer, the Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion slammed the table and stood up, harumphing coldly. Desolate Martial, how arrogant. Why aren't you removing your mask after coming to Scarlet Dark Valley? Let's see your true appearance. Exactly. The stronghold lord of heaven Azura stronghold sneered. How should we know where you came from if you're hiding the entire time? Cowardly rat. The sect masters present were all from black-grade factions in this territory and had long heard of the methods of the martial Dao Prime body. If not for the fact that they were in Scarlet Dark Valley, they would not have dared to speak to the martial Dao Prime body in such a manner. Everyone, there's no need to be angry. Heaven Immortal Chile pretended to be magnanimous and waved it off. Extraordinary people naturally have a strange way of doing things. Since this fellow Taoist insists on wearing his mask, he can have it on. Desolate Marshal, aren't you going to thank our young master? Tianze stood behind the martial Dao Prime body and narrowed his eyes. When the martial Dao Prime body entered the hall, he did not bow to anyone or even say anything. Everyone was already displeased. Although Heaven Immortal Chile did not say it explicitly, his eyes were already filled with killing intent. Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime body stomped his feet and asked, "What's beneath this hall?" He could vaguely sense that the source of the hatred should be beneath the hall. Beneath this is the most outstanding battle slave I've ever reared. At the mention of that, Heaven Immortal Chile was a little smug. He looked at the sect masters on the 2 rows in the hall and asked with a smile, "I wonder if any of the people you guys brought this time round can defeat my battle slave? Fellow Taoist Chile, I found a moon-devouring heavenly wolf this time round. Although its bloodline is impure, it's extremely ferocious and can compete against your battle slave." As he said that, the pavilion lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion waved his sleeves and threw out a gigantic cage. Within was a gigantic wolf that was 100 feet tall with short, silver fur. The gigantic wolf's cultivation was at the level 9 Black Essence realm. It bared its fangs and had a ferocious gaze. The fur on its body shone with a strange silver glow, and its eyes vaguely reflected 2 round moons that were incomparably demonic. It was said that this lineage of the wolf race could devour the full moon in the firmaments. Heaven Immortal Chile burst into laughter. Good, good, good. The moon-devouring heavenly wolf doesn't look weak. I wonder how many slashes it can take from my battle slave. Come on out. Heaven Immortal Chile waved his palm, and the ground in the middle of the hall suddenly cracked. A skinny figure wrapped in chains rushed out from the ground with a pitch-black saber in his right hand, filled with torrential hatred. That person's hair was disheveled, and he was covered in injuries. Many of the wounds on his body had yet to form scabs, and some of his flesh had already rotted. Kill. The moment the figure arrived in the hall, he charged towards Heaven Immortal Chile with bloodshot eyes. Humph. However, before he even took a few steps, Heaven Immortal Chile sneered and his spirit consciousness moved. Tiny spikes popped out from the chains on the person's body and pierced into his body like thorns. Instantly, blood flowed from that person's body. Even the person's kneecap was pierced by the thorns. As though he could not feel any pain, he did not make a single sound. His body trembled, and he almost fell to the ground. However, he still glared at Heaven Immortal Chile fiercely, wanting nothing more than to skin the latter alive. Hee. At the side, the pavilion lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion chuckled. Fellow Taoist Chile, you've captured this battle slave for many years. To think that you've yet to subdue him. Even now, he wants to kill his master. It's fine. I'll torture those who are disobedient bit by bit. Heaven Immortal Chile said with a smile, "This is the outcome of anyone who dares to disobey me in my territory." As he said that, Heaven Immortal Chile turned to look at the martial Dao Prime body. His words were meant for the martial Dao Prime body. However, the martial Dao Prime body did not seem to have heard anything and merely looked at the battle slave who was covered in injuries not far away with a shuddering killing intent. Chapter 2157. 2157, Can you even withstand my punch? 2157, Can you even withstand my punch? The martial Dao Prime body did not conceal his killing intent at all, and the entire hall was filled with a murderous aura instantly. The sect masters of the various sects and factions stood up one after another, and looked at the martial Tao prime body coldly with wary expressions. This was Scarlet Dark Valley. The top experts of the Heaven Essence realm were all gathered here with Heaven Immortal Qi Li presiding over the situation. Everyone believed that even if the martial Tao prime body had extraordinary methods, he would not be able to cause much trouble. Do you know who he is? The gaze of the martial Tao prime body landed on Heaven Immortal Qi Li as he pointed at the figure trapped by the thorn chains not far away and asked slowly. Due to the cover of the silver mask, the voice of the martial Tao prime body changed. However, the silver mask could not conceal the cold killing intent in that voice. Heaven Immortal Qi Li had a fearless expression as he sneered. Him? He's just an ant that ascended from the lower worlds. Right now, he's only my slave and his life and death depends on a single thought of mine. Is that so? The martial Tao prime body said. He came from the same world as me. When they heard that, everyone in the hall had different expressions. The blood vessels in the figure's eyes seemed to have faded, and he no longer struggled. However, he could not react for a moment and looked lost. The palace lord of Peerless Palace sneered. In that case, the rumors are true. Indeed, you're from the lower worlds. No matter how strong you are, you're destined to be a lowlife. The Sect master of Windfire Sect raised his brow slightly and said mockingly, Why? You want to intervene and save this battle slave? Ha 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 ha. Everyone in the hall burst into laughter. Heaven Immortal Qi Li looked down with a proud expression and said slowly, Desolate Marshal, let me tell you, if you don't submit to me today, don't even think about leaving alive. Desolate Marshal? When he heard that, the figure shuddered and spun around, looking at the martial Tao prime body in disbelief. However, through the silver mask, he could not see the appearance of the martial Tao prime body and could not confirm it right away. Brother Yin, it's me. The martial Tao prime body nodded at him. The cultivator wrapped in thorns was the Azura of Tianhuang mainland, Yin Beichen. Su Zimo's two true bodies had ascended. After thousands of years, he finally met an old friend from Tianhuang mainland who was in the same generation as him. Ever since the Green Lotus true body ascended, he had encountered countless dangers in the divine firmament immortal domain, and every step was treacherous. Relying on many trump cards and encounters, including the protection of seniors of Tianhuang mainland, the Green Lotus true body gradually rose and eventually joined Heaven and Earth Academy, escaping from danger for the time being. The environment of the upper world was way too vile. Even for the Green Lotus true body, the situation was so difficult after his ascension, let alone the others. Although it was extremely rare for the Azura to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm, his physical and mental condition was extremely poor, and he was tortured beyond recognition. The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao prime body had long scanned the Azura's body. The Azura's essence spirit was severely injured and filled with cracks. The reason why he could still struggle and release his combat strength was because his body was driven by an innate hatred. The hatred was so strong that it even covered the injuries on his essence spirit and suppressed the negative effects of his essence spirit injuries on his body. The Hatred Sutra was indeed a top-tier dermic formulation. Most cultivation techniques of the lower worlds relied on the environment of the lower world, spirit chi, dermic powers, or bloodline. Therefore, most cultivation techniques became useless after ascending to the upper world. However, the Hatred Sutra was different. The foundation of cultivating the Hatred Sutra was the hatred in one's heart. Be it in the lower or upper worlds, be it with spirit chi or heaven and earth essence chi, the hatred in one's heart would always exist. With hatred, one could cultivate the Hatred Sutra. That was also the reason why the Azura was able to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm despite the lack of cultivation resources and being imprisoned. Of course, the Hatred Sutra had its drawbacks as well. The intense hatred could suppress the injuries on the Azura's body for the time being. However, as time passed, the injuries in his body accumulated and turned more serious. He would definitely collapse eventually. Yin Beichen panted slightly, and every single breath he took emitted a strong blood stench. Although he could not see the appearance of the martial Dao Prime body and there was a difference in his voice, he knew in his heart who the purple-robed man before him was. There was only a single person in Tianhuang mainland who would address him as such. You. Yin Beichen looked at the martial Dao Prime body. The initial excitement in his eyes gradually dissipated, and he revealed a worried expression. After he ascended, he was imprisoned here. He knew very well how strong, terrifying, and powerful the enemies he was facing were. They were completely unstoppable. Su Zimo had only ascended 2,000 years earlier than him. How could he have grown to the point where he was comparable to these experts? Escape on your own, Yin Beichen said softly. Without my permission, no one can dream of leaving today. Heaven Immortal Qi Li said coldly and waved his palm. With a bang, the heavy door of the hall closed rapidly. Every single tile in the hall was made from rare metal ores. Once the door to the hall was closed, it was almost equivalent to a prison. Even Heaven Immortals would have difficulty breaking through it with brute force. That's right. The martial Dao Prime body nodded and murmured softly, without my permission, no one can dream of leaving today. He seemed to be repeating Heaven Immortal Qi Li's words. However, everyone in the hall suddenly felt their hearts skip a beat and shuddered, as though a calamity was about to descend. Before that thought was finished, the martial Dao Prime body suddenly attacked. He strode forward and arrived before Heaven Immortal Qi Li instantly, punching. There were no unnecessary movements. It was just a normal punch. However, that punch contained the will of the martial Dao and interweaved all the Dao and Dermic arts of the martial Dao Prime body. It was unshakable and indestructible. Heaven Immortal Qi Li's expression changed starkly. The contempt and arrogance in his eyes vanished instantly. Under the envelopment of that punch, all his past pride, glory, and confidence were crushed instantly. He could sense a strong aura of death. Astral swap. Heaven Immortal Qi Li roared and channeled his essence spirit to its limits, releasing a supreme divine power. He did not dare to take the martial Dao Prime body head-on and could only circulate astral swap, wanting to shift the power released by that punch elsewhere. The power of divine powers spread. Under the effect of astral swap, a terrifying power was spun to the side by Heaven Immortal Qi Li and descended on the Palace Lord of Peerless Palace. Bang! The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace, a grade 9 Heaven Immortal, had just summoned his dermic treasure when he was turned into a blood mist by the punch before he could react. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot without the chance to use blood rebirth. Heaven Immortal Qi Li seized the opportunity to retreat dozens of feet. Suddenly, his figure paused and trembled slightly with endless fear in his eyes. Right in front of everyone, the body of Heaven Immortal Qi Li exploded as well. Broken limbs flew everywhere and fresh blood splattered on the ground. You overestimate yourself. The martial Dao Prime body sneered. Can you even withstand my punch? Although astral swap neutralized most of the punch from the martial Dao Prime body, the martial Dao will and dermic arts contained in that punch still struck Heaven Immortal Qi Li and ruptured his body. Chapter 2158, 2158 Six Paths of Reincarnation. 2158 Six Paths of Reincarnation. Everyone in the Hall of Scarlet Dark Valley was shocked. In everyone's hearts, Heaven Immortal Qi Li was already the #1 Heaven Immortal of this radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and no one was his match. But now, Heaven Immortal Qi Li could not even withstand a single punch from Desolate Martial. There were dozens of Heaven Immortal experts in the hall. Although everyone could not see through the cultivation realm of the martial Dao Prime body, they could sense the aura and power released by his attack. The power of that punch had not reached the level of a perfected immortal and was still at the Heaven Immortal realm. However, that single punch killed 2 grade 9 Heaven Immortals. The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace was implicated for no reason. Before he could attack, his essence spirit was destroyed because of Heaven Immortal Qi Li's astral swap. How could anyone defend against such power? Everyone, let's attack together. No matter how strong that person is, he won't be able to defend against our combined attacks." Right then, a divine light burst forth from the blood mist of heaven Immortal Qi and escaped to the end of the hall. It was his essence spirit. The essence spirit wore an essence spirit armor. However, the essence spirit armor was filled with cracks and was completely crippled. It was an essence spirit dermic treasure. If not for that dermic treasure, he would have died earlier on. Heaven Immortal Qi regenerated his body and roared with a menacing expression. Everyone in the hall was invigorated when they saw Heaven Immortal Qi use blood rebirth. Initially, they wanted to retreat. Now, they were eager and murderous. Kill. As the main protectors of Scarlet Hell Valley, Tianze and Paifeng stood out right away and hollered. Each of them summoned a flying sword and stabbed it towards the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, the two of them joined forces and changed their hand seals. Hell Dao, Hungry Ghost Dao, Beast Dao, Azura Dao, Human Dao, Heavenly Dao. Instantly, the two of them released 3 divine powers, each infused rapidly in midair, gradually forming a gigantic reincarnation cycle. Condense 6 paths of reincarnation. Tianze and Paifeng were telepathic and shouted at the same time. 6 paths of reincarnation was a supreme divine power. Furthermore, it was the most ferocious killing method among supreme divine powers and could be ranked in the top 10. In the upper world, there was even a legend that the 6 paths of reincarnation was originally a peerless divine power. However, throughout history, almost no one could break through the core dermic Dao of that divine power. As time passed by, 6 paths of reincarnation was gradually relegated into a supreme divine power. Even so, that supreme divine power was definitely not something that ordinary Heaven Immortal experts could comprehend and release. Tianze and Paifeng were both grade 9 Heaven Immortals. However, neither of them could release the complete 6 paths of reincarnation alone. Comprehending 6 different obscurities was only one facet of things. More importantly, if the essence spirit was not condensed and strong enough, when 6 paths of reincarnation was released, the essence spirit would be pulled in by the 6 paths and enter reincarnation. A supreme divine power that can possibly kill the caster before anyone else is killed. Who would dare release it casually? Therefore, the two of them took another path and comprehended 3 of them respectively. When they synthesized with one another, 6 paths of reincarnation could be released. Although it sounded simple, the two of them had practiced this move for countless years and had failed countless times. If anything went wrong, it would be difficult for the 6 paths to synthesize and form the cycle of reincarnation. This was their greatest trump card. When 6 paths of reincarnation was released, even Heaven Immortal Qi had to avoid it. The expressions of many Heaven Immortal experts in the hall changed starkly, and they did not dare to approach at all, afraid that their essence spirits would be sucked in by the 6 paths and enter reincarnation. The eyes of the martial Dao prime body were deep. Instead of retreating, he charged towards the gigantic wheel in midair. You must have a death wish. When he saw that, Heaven Immortal Qi eyes lit up. Tianze and Paifeng were delighted as well. If the body fell into 6 paths of reincarnation, it would definitely be minced by the cycle of reincarnation. The essence spirit would also enter the cycle of reincarnation and die. The only way to defend against 6 paths of reincarnation was to use a supreme divine power of the same level to take it head-on. Otherwise, he had to avoid it. If he wanted to defend against 6 paths of reincarnation with his body or other methods, that would be equivalent to committing suicide. Everyone in the hall could almost see the martial Dao prime body's essence spirit being destroyed the next moment. Phew! After the martial Dao prime body fell into 6 paths of reincarnation, the joy on everyone's faces gradually froze and was replaced by shock, surprise, and fear. The martial Dao prime body stood in midair motionlessly and his black hair danced. 6 paths of reincarnation circled around him and gradually stopped. It could not even injure a single hair of the martial Dao prime body, let alone destroy his body. Not only that, the intrusion of the martial Dao prime body caused 6 paths of reincarnation to show signs of collapse. How dare you embarrass yourself with such methods? The martial Tao Prime Body sneered. His existence was a variable to begin with. He was beyond the 3 realms and 5 elements. He did not belong in the cycle of reincarnation at all. Although the power of 6 paths of reincarnation was strong, it could not hurt him at all. I'll let you guys witness what the true 6 paths of reincarnation is. The eyes of the martial Tao Prime Body lit up and his body shuddered. His blood chi surged and dispersed the surrounding gigantic wheel. Immediately after, he conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands and released 6 divine powers rapidly, gathering in midair to form another gigantic wheel. Pissed. The crowd was shocked. He released the complete 6 paths of reincarnation on his own. The difference between him and Tianze and Paifeng was obvious. Furthermore, although Tianze and Paifeng could join forces to condense 6 paths of reincarnation, there were more or less flaws in that supreme divine power. However, the martial Tao Prime Body's 6 paths of reincarnation had no flaws. Although it was still a supreme divine power, the might of this 6 paths of reincarnation was much stronger than the one Tianze and Paifeng had just released. The martial Tao Prime Body had once smelted countless divine powers and secret skills in the Kunlun ruins of Tianhuang mainland. It was naturally understandable that he could release 6 paths of reincarnation. However, the martial Tao technique focused on cultivating oneself. Therefore, the martial Tao Prime Body rarely used those divine powers and secret skills in battle. Boom, boom. The moment the previous 6 paths of reincarnation collapsed, an even more terrifying 6 paths of reincarnation appeared in midair. Although the martial Tao Prime Body was free from the cycle of reincarnation, the same could not be said for the many cultivators present. The first to be struck were Tianze and Paifeng. The 2 protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley were engulfed by 6 paths of reincarnation before they could even withstand a single breath. Their bodies were shattered, and their essence spirits were destroyed. 8 heaven immortal experts in the vicinity hurriedly released their supreme divine powers, wanting to fight. However, those supreme divine powers dissipated the moment they made contact with 6 paths of reincarnation. The 8 heaven immortal experts were not spared either, and were dragged into reincarnation. Against the suppression of 6 paths of reincarnation, their dermic treasures and weapons shattered into dust. Firmament slash. Moon-striking comet. Finger yellow springs. Boom, boom, boom. The remaining heaven immortal experts in the hall released supreme divine powers one after another, creating raging tides like dark clouds that blanketed the city. In midair, divine light shone and sword chi streaked everywhere with a chilling intent. Dermic treasures tore through the air one after another and weaved into a dense net that descended from the skies, enveloping the martial Tao Prime Body and 6 paths of reincarnation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.